Does he have it?
Medeiros is going to get it.
They're going to toss it. They haven't got it.
He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's caught back into play. Exactly, Miller's still such up. He's not on second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's going to do it. Big Barry!
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone watching all across the world, whether you're watching this live or you're watching this on a playback. Welcome to the VWSC Historic Series here, and we are in Italy. And what are we doing in Italy? Well, it's a first for me. It's a first for Mr. Paul Glover that's going to be in the air today, but it's not a first for Mr. Ewan O'Leary. And we'll see, and we'll talk to him, and hopefully he can give me some tips as this goes through. It is the Coppa Carotti hill climb here on the 27th of July, and we'll go through. We've hit the halfway point of the season here in the 1964 Historic Series, brought to you by Storm Gang Simulation. From here, it's Capodiena. It's going to be Goodwood on the 17th of August. The Nürburgring on the 5th of October. We'll take a few weeks off there and gather up because we all know the Nürburgring is going to be a beast. And then we'll go to Monza from there. Bridgehampton, Providence Alps hill climb. We have another hill climb on the 30th. And then we will end with the 100 Minutes of Paris at the end of our season here. And that, I think, is going to be a good way to end. But what is this track we're at? What is a hill climb? Well, this is essentially going to be rally. And if you've ever watched any sort of rallycross, that's what you're in for today here for the next few hours. So stick with us here. It's a 9-mile, 14.45 kilometer track built in 1939, uses public roads, 4 big hairpins, and it leads from Liscano down to Terminillo here in the Coppa Bruno Carotti hill climb. And we'll talk about some of the fun history of this hill climb as this goes through. What's going to be the keys to this race today? Well, you need to stay focused, and you better know the track, and you need to preserve your car for all 14 kilometers that you go through. Make sure you nail all 4 of those hairpins on the track map, and make sure you carry your speed all the way up the hill, all the way down the hill, and all the way around. And if you can do that, well, you might be okay today. But that is going to be the big keys here. And then from there, what is going to be next? Well, let's talk about strategy, because yes, there is strategy on a hill climb. Make sure if you're driving one of the Div 1-2s, you've got around 3 to 7 liters of fuel. We say the Alpine and the Alfa Romeo are the cars to beat, but I'll tell you right now, looking at the timing tables, Becky Ely and Ben Borman in the Lotus, they are lighting up the timing charts by quite a bit. And we'll talk about that in a bit. And the big key for them is just maximize speed and be brave. That is really, really what you got to do to make these Div 1-2 cars work out, and it seems like it's going to be a good one for them. Now, what is the plan for Div 3s? Weight transfer. Those big beasts, you got to transfer the weight, and you got to rotate the car in the hairpin. They're going to need somewhere between 12 and 20 liters depending on the car, and we're saying the Shelby or the 250 GTO, and I'll tell you right now, that 250 GTO is lighting up the timing tables, and they are the top ones in the Div 3. This is going to be one of those races where the Div 1-2 is going to outdo the Div 3, so make sure you keep your eyes on that. The lighter cars are, of course, going to go a little bit faster, but that is really going to be where things plan out. Let's talk about standings while we're here. This is the Div 3 standings on your screen. Starts out with Bradley Sellers in the Smile Power Racing Shelby Daytona at 35 35.4 points respectively. 35.1 points is JT Tammy right there on the back. Magnus Dahlgren isn't that far behind either at 28.1. Nicholas Kirsten at 21.7. Ethan Funk at 20. And then you got Ross Smith with the rookie monsters at 13.05. Bit of a gap there between the top five. Wouter de Bruin in P7, Timon Subic, Alexander Schulz, Tom Lane, Mike Bell, Jason Whitehead, Brian Hall, and Kyle Vessa, your 14 Div 3 drivers. Of course, it is Emmy Racing Ferrari 250s up in the top of the standings with Smile Power Racing, Shelby Daytona in P2, the Rookie Monsters in P3, and Storm Rider Racing down in 4th place here in the Div 3 standings. Going from there, looking at our next set, it is Div 3 AMs, of course, and it's Jerry Chen with 55.8 points, with George Angelides at 33.2. Big gap there, and of course, we're halfway through the season, so George needs to dig deep and find some ways to gather that one up. Barry DeMarzo is down in 3rd at 17.6, a big gap there as well. John Mayer in 4th, Dave Kors, Harslov Zekic, and Peter Meyer are the 7 drivers there, with Flying Kiwi Racing in the lead, with Scuderia Cavalli, Ferrari 250 there in 2nd place in the Div 3 AMs. We move on from that to your Div 1-2 standings, where we have a lot of different drivers. I'm going to cover the top 10, but make sure you look and see if your favorite driver is on there. It's going to be Aliko Busink, Dan Herlock, Becky Ely there in 3rd place, Cameron Barker, Dan Kirby, Reese Gardner, David Junt, Ben Borman, Eduardo Benica, and Oliver Day, your top 10 there. Of course, 24 drivers listed on there, so make sure you find your favorite driver. In your top 3 teams as it sits, Joy Motorsports Porsche there, Mike Bell Motorsports in the Alfa Romeos, and the CMS Pros in the Alfa Romeos as well are your top 3 in the Div 1 and 2. And again, if I didn't say your favorite driver, that doesn't mean they're not my favorite driver. That just means that they're outside of the top 10 in points, and they're outside of the top 3 in the teams. But again, plenty of time left in the season. We'll see where they can go from there. In the Div 1-2 AMs, it is Eric Monet that has the lead, with Adam Gray in 2nd, James Bowders in P3, Michael Luck, Santiago Dancourt, Tom Mountjoy, Luke Goodlife, Filippo Marazzi, my apologies, and Fernando Ferreira in the 9 drivers in the Div 1-2 AM, with Mistral Targa Porsches there in P1, Reptile Racing Porsches in P2, and Gasso Lynx Racing Porsches in P3 in the team standings. But that is going to round out all of our teams. That's everything in. That's enough of me waffling on and about and talking about things, as the wonderful James Parfit would say, who is not with us today. And so I brought a good friend other than Paul Glover. It is, of course, Ewan O'Leary here on the side to work with me. He's done a hill climb before, so he might be able to give us a bit more of what to expect. Ewan, good afternoon, good evening, my friend. How are you?
Good evening, doing well. Looking forward to, actually my first round of this, the historic for this season, or indeed last season, but anyway, looking forward to a hill climb, the first of 2 that we're going to have over the course of 2024, and yeah, it is a little bit different to normal racing, I suppose. We're not going to see wheel-to-wheel stuff exactly, but it is going to be interesting. It's going to be exciting, hopefully, as well, and in all of the classes, as far as I can see at the moment, we do have fairly close races in terms of practice times. 3 of the 4 classes have got 1st and 2nd separated by less than a second after a hill climb that is over 7 minutes in length, for some of the classes over 7.5 minutes in length. So it is very good to see, and should be exciting over the next couple of hours to see who actually goes on and wins.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see where this lands. Like we talked about, kind of similar to, I believe it was Targa Florio, if I'm remembering off the top of my head. This is a track that is going to play very, very well to the Div 1-2s, and we should see a Div 1-2 at the top of the tables. As it stands in practice, it's Div 1-2, 1-2, 3 right now. So we should see that go through. I do want to touch on a few of the different special rules for this session, just because it is a hill climb. Things are done a little bit different. Now, we are showing 34 cars are signed up for this hill climb, and we have the running order here on our side. It's going to start, as we have it, it starts with Johnny Gutierrez and ends with Wouter de Bruin. That was decided on through public voting and the teams went on and said, and the drivers went on and said, I'll run here, I'll go here. Now, there is no official formal qualifying. The running order is set. Now, what does that mean for us? That means that we are running where we're running, and that is just how it's going to go. Nothing crazy for that. Now, it may show on our timing side that it is a qualifying session, but let me assure you, the race starts in about 3 minutes time. Now, it is one driver released at a time, and there will be about a 2 to 3 minute gap through each car. We don't have the exact timing on that yet. Now, the release frequency, it's going to be one car released, then the next car released. Drivers can't talk to each other. They're going to be in a separate chat. We'll pull drivers down, send drivers back as it goes, but when they're running, they're going to be in their own little voice chat going. The race director will tell them, go, go, go. And as soon as you're told go by the race director, it's out of the pits and away you go. Once they complete the run, they get out. They get one attempt. If they run and they have an incident, they are not allowed. They can continue until they complete it, but they cannot reset back to the pits. If they go back to the pits, they DNF. They're done. You have to go start to finish. So if you wreck, it's over. Also, I'm going to hit blue flag rules. If the car behind you catches up to you for whatever reason, you have to let them go, and you cannot repass them. That, I think James would be very excited about. I'm sure, Ewan, you probably have some feedback on that. But that's the big rules to make sure this hill climb goes very smooth. And I do want to touch on one more thing. Barry DiMarzo has left the Scuderia Cavalli Ferrari team in Div 3 AM. Barry has gotten some awesome real life stuff going on and has signed a contract to play a Chicago Broadway show. So he has left, and with that, Jason Whitehead will be released from his contract at Storm Rider Racing and is going to be joining the Scuderia Cavalli. And we'll see how that one plays out. This will be the debut going through for them. I want to make sure I touch on that before things get going. But we're almost time to get underway here, Ewan. How do you think this 2 hours is going to go? We are looking at about 2 hours of running here, plenty of drivers. Any bold predictions from you today?
Well, what are you going to count as bold? I don't think anything I'm going to say is going to be counted as bold, but maybe someone crashing on both of their laps, somebody not getting actually a clean time in. That's to be expected, I think. It's a difficult circuit. It's not a circuit. I've got to stop saying that. Got to get my head around the fact it's not circular at all. It's just a singular road. I'm going to guess that somebody is not going to get a lap time in representative of their pace in either of their goes. That's just the kind of thing that can sometimes happen in one of these, and that's what I'm going to say is my not so very bold prediction, because it's not very bold, to be honest with you, but I'm making it anyway. As things stand at the moment, we don't think that we've got Johnny Gutierrez anywhere in the session. He was meant to be going first. We've just had an adjustment so that now we believe Daniel Scott will be going first. He's in the Alfa Romeo in Div 1-2, so we will see when he gets back out onto the circuit for the first time. But we've had a edit to the running order, and that's when that is complete, we will finally be underway with the first lap. But for the moment, Scott is still very much in the pit lane.
Yeah, and it makes sense, too, because we were told that Div 1-2 would be running before Div 3, and again, that is just due to the pace difference and the power difference, so it kind of doesn't surprise me, and again, this is going to be a little bit of a live session as it goes, so we might get some changes in running order as it sits. It's going to depend on what drivers are there and ready to go and where they're at. It does look like I see everybody in the voice chat that needs to be in the voice chat, so we should be getting things underway very, very shortly, and that will get things on the road. Once we get the first driver on, we'll get a camera on them and get things going, and they'll have, in theory, 2 to 3 minutes before the next car is released.
Yeah, I think it should be 2 minutes based on the we're working on the idea that we're going to have a couple of hours of racing tonight. If we do 2 minute gaps, there'll be 66 runs. 66 times 2 is like 132 or something, so that's about 2 hours and 12 minutes, 2 hours and a quarter or so. So 3 minutes would extend that right out to over 3 hours. So I would expect it to be at 2 minutes, but we'll wait and see what the race direction decides to do.
Yeah, we all know the race director is keen, so when the race director says something, that is just what you do, and you don't argue it at all. And, well, frankly, you can argue it, but we all know that you don't win. You just don't win against a race director. Just don't try. I promise it's not worth it. This is going to be a unique sort of broadcast too on our side because, again, I've never done a hill climb. You've done one, Ewan. I know Paul hasn't done one. So there's a little bit of, a different setup. It's not going to be that sort of wheel-to-wheel battle action we're used to. We're not going to see 3 cars, side by side, bumper to bumper, battling through. This is all about just a driver being in the zone with what they know. You need to know your track. You need to just be in the zone for that one good run because you get one and done here. It is just go and be done. So you got to make sure that you nail that in. And if you don't, it's a very, very bad day for you. So as a driver, you got to get in that zone. And that's going to be the hard part, I think, for a lot of these guys is not letting the nerves get to them as they sit there and they wait on their run time to hit.
Yeah. I think one of the good things, though, from our side of things, that we actually get to talk about everyone, not very often in normal road race do we actually get to talk about every single one of the competitors. Someone might crash out earlier. We might not really speak about them very much. Someone might just have a very under the radar race, and that's just what happens sometimes in road racing. But in hill climbing, everybody goes off separately, so we can actually talk about everyone. And I was going to start by talking about Daniel Scott, but he doesn't actually, as far as I can work out, have any other previous results in this season for the virtual World Sports Car Championship in the historic section of things. So that's a bit of a downside. So can't really speak about that too much, but hopefully he'll be out on the circuit very shortly and we can start to talk about his lap because it is an interesting, it's not a lap, is it? It is climb, if you like, up the mountainside. It is an interesting lap or run up the hill. It is not very switchbacky at the start. It's got quite a long first section where far from flat out, and it is very twisty, but it isn't very, stamp on the brakes and really change your direction 180 degrees. That comes sort of in the middle third and the final third, but in the first third, you are very much pointing in the same direction, although you are twisting and turning again and again. As you mentioned before, formed in 1939, this means that this has been used a lot in the world of hill climbing. So if any of these guys are fans of hill climbing, then they will know their way around. But I'm not sure too many of these drivers have done many hill climbs in the past. And so that might prove to be, or this process, at least before this event, might have proved to be quite difficult for them in terms of working out where the course goes and actually going quickly around here. Very difficult indeed.
Yeah, this is going to be the interesting part for me is what drivers have hill climb experience, because it is it's a different beast. It is just zone in and go. This is, we were talking with Ross pre-broadcast about driving in the East US in Appalachia and kind of driving in the mountains and doing, fun mountain carving, for lack of a better phrase, just driving and taking your road car and driving it to the best of your ability out on those twisty, windy roads, up the mountain, down the mountain, around. This is kind of what these guys are doing. So it'll be interesting to see who is comfortable in that style and who really wants that more traditional racetrack setup. And we've seen time and time again through this season that these cars are a handful to handle, even in the best of conditions. So these cars, we talked about it with Div 3, weight transfer is going to be a big thing. With Div 1, 2, just keeping the power in them is going to be a big thing. So there's a lot that comes to play with these cars because they are a unique handful to handle on their own as we go through this race. And this is a race that has been around for a very, very long time, and it's public road. This is nothing special in terms of a private purpose-built racetrack. This is public road, and this is what these historic cars are very well known for and good for, is that public road setup and going through. It's what I enjoy watching them do, at least. Other people may say, well, we want them on purpose-built racetracks. No, throw them on public roads, and let's see how the drivers handle them. That'll be the most interesting part through, for me, seeing how these cars handle. And I think this will really be the standout for who has practiced the most in these cars and has a great handling on how their cars drive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about these guys privately, of course, but it is notable at the practice session that, some drivers were getting upwards of 50 attempts during the practice session prior to this event. So I don't know how many minutes that is, whatever 7 times 50 is, but 350, that's about 6 hours of practice in theory. So, lots and lots of runs. Then again, I guess they wouldn't have completed all of those runs, so that's worth bearing in mind. But even so, it does take a lot of practice. It will take an awful lot to actually recognise even where you are. It's a bit like if you think back to your earlier days, whoever you are, thinking about learning the Nordschleife. It's always pretty difficult when you're on the young side and you're first going round there. You don't know where the track goes next. It's a bit like that, but only you can't come round to do it again and just go round in circles again and again and again. You got to start all over again at the bottom of the mountain and then try and go up the hill once more. So it's a different way of learning, and a different way of racing as well, but equally interesting, and we're not too far away from the first runs now.
Yeah, waiting on the first runs to go through. We've got a couple drivers that have requested to kind of just not have things through, but one driver that has said they want to have a live conversation while they open up our session here is Daniel Scott. Has decided he wants to talk and drive. So, Mr. Scott, what has made you decide that?
You guys might want to move me back till I start moving, because he needs to announce when I go. I don't know when I go. Drag me back down in like a minute or 2.
All right.
Thank you.
We can do that.
We'll bring you back because, as I say, everyone's got their designated start time. And we can't interfere with that, obviously. Otherwise, we will never get going because the first driver will not know when to go. There you go.
It's going to be interesting though to kind of hear him talk about the track as he runs. I'm kind of excited to see how that goes. But it also kind of shows the different sort of mindset with this race. This is going to be a fun run for a lot of these guys. While there is going to be, the competitive aspect, some of these guys are really going to be just having fun here.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's I suppose the idea every time. But yeah, I get the point. That was one of the things mentioned actually in the announcement as we actually prepared for this event. George put in the announcement that it is supposed to be with an eye towards fun a little bit more than some of the other rounds. But I think most of the rounds have been in a way just a little bit different, a little bit fun in that sense. So it's been good, but we are just about time to go. I can hear an engine. I heard an engine fire about 5 minutes ago, but nothing seems to happen. So I don't know what people are starting engines for if nobody's going anywhere. But anyway, I can just hear one in the background getting ready. And in no time, I'm sure, Daniel Scott will be actually out onto the circuit.
Yeah, I'm guessing that this is just kind of letting the final things get in order. I do still see some last-second edits going into the running order. There's 35 drivers now showing in the running order. We've had the addition of... I'm not sure who we've had the addition of. I'll figure that out here in just a moment. But we do officially have Daniel Scott on track, and let this be the green flag into the wonderful hill climb here at Coppa Carotti. And here we go, and this is going to be the point where we get Daniel Scott back as he gets flying along here. And Daniel, just kind of talk us through the track as you go, if you don't mind, if you can.
Yeah, I'll give it a good go. Don't have a lot of experience with this hill climb. I'm kind of a last minute addition. But I'm just trying to feed it through without crashing, essentially. Like
oh dear!
Wonderful start.
Oh, I will say the good thing about having all the drivers run separate and no racing kind of side by side racing is the commentator's curse cannot be claimed this weekend. So I think we're okay from that side, Ewan.
Well, you say that doesn't stop people crashing on their own, I suppose. But yeah, hopefully a bit less of that. I feel quite awkward commentating on someone who can listen to me while they're doing it.
Oh, feel free to criticise away. I am.
No.
For this one.
Hey, I'm willing to bet that you are pointing the right direction for longer than some will later on. So there you go.
Let's hope.
Is there anything nice about going first, I have to ask? You know, just getting getting out there, getting the run out of the way?
Yeah, it's actually much nicer. I was surprised because I had dropped out earlier in the day and I was about 11th, and George just put me back in first a minute ago. So it was a good surprise. It's nice to get out of the way. I don't have to go do other things, that sort of thing. It's nice. I don't get to watch anyone else, which is a disadvantage, I guess.
You can watch it on the stream, though. Always tune in the stream after the fact and hang out and watch somebody go through. What's the most challenging part of this track? Is it the hairpins, or is it?
It's the corners that because of lack of practice, I don't know if they're flat or brakes, or just a lift. So a lot of the times I'll brake for a corner I don't need to, or I'll only lift when I should brake. Because obviously you don't have a track map or a co-driver, unless you've done a lot of practice. It's a 7.5 minute lap, so unless you've done quite a lot of practice, hard to know.
Alright. Yeah, that makes sense. And you're about 2.5 minutes into your run. We've got 3 minutes spacing going through, so you've got a little bit of time before anyone's even behind you to get going. You're getting up the mountain. Seems like you're doing pretty well here. How's the car feeling?
The car's remarkably easy to drive. It's my first time in this car, and I expected it to be very understeery, like a typical 6-stage car. It's very difficult to drive, but this is actually very easy to drive. I have noticed in practice it's very down on power compared to the other cars.
Oh, good save! Good
and it's
save!
Quite easy to save the car as well, which is nice. It's a wonderful car to drive. I'm looking forward to driving it the rest of the season.
Yeah, the Alfa Romeos seemed really good on most tracks, so I'm interested to see how the different cars handle on the hill climb, but it seems like it's handling pretty well here. Stab on the brakes hard, get in through the chicane, avoid the walls. Good move, and then just keep the car going there, get the momentum back up. And it seems like, overall, it seems like you're doing pretty smooth here, 3.5 minutes into your 7 to 8 minute run.
Not bad, getting there. I haven't rolled it yet, but there's still time. Ooh, I've done one complete. There we go. Oh. Okay. I'll go in.
And gets it back underway. And not too bad. Not too bad. You're doing okay.
Without steering damage, you're all good.
And it seems like you're doing pretty well here. Next car is on track behind you, a few minutes behind. David Junt has just crossed the start-finish line to start his run here, going through. And then from there, I believe it will be Ben Borman who will be the next car on track. But, hey, you're setting purple times here, Daniel, so
that's important. You'll be able to say that on commentary the entire time I race with you guys.
I'm okay with that. We'll make it feel good at least right now. So even if you don't think you'll be the fastest later, as of right now you're purple. So that's the important part.
I assume at least one person's not going to finish. So not last. That's my goal.
Well, exactly. I was saying this, like, a lot of people are going to have incidents and have problems over the course of that. Just a clean run will, I think, get anyone a long way. I think
there are a good few corners where there's a curb on the ground where if you hit the car, it will roll. Like, definitely. I've rolled a few times, so that is a danger for the cars out there. But other than that, there's not a lot of places you can really bin it too badly. So rolling's your main danger, I think, rather than damaging itself. I don't think you can go off the cliff at all. But if there's a way, I'll find it.
I gotta ask out of curiosity, is this one of those races, sort of setups with the hill climb that you want to be 1,000,000% flat out, or do you want to conserve 2 or 3% to make sure you get to the end of the run because you'll be better off that way?
It depends on the amount of practice you've been able to do and the amount of control you've got under the car. If you've got confidence and you know that the competition is good, then you might want to, go 100%. But if you have some delta to the cars behind and you're not that confident, then yeah, keeping a little bit back just to finish the run might serve you well. It depends what your goal is, to be honest. If your goal is just to finish, then obviously you don't want to send it full force. But if you're trying to go for the championship, I don't know who the championship leaders are, then yeah, I imagine they might go for it. There isn't a big difference in points between first and second, so maybe that'll incentivize people to take it easy a little bit, as opposed to... Oh yeah, I mean, they're going to take them out. They're crashed in every sector so far. Never know, though, he might roll.
David Junt taking sector 1. So we do have some times improving here. But Daniel, you're not too far from the end of your lap. So you've done pretty well. You're keeping it together.
Oh, the hubris of doing this live. I should have done more practice if I was going to do this. It's been fun, though.
You're doing just fine going through. You're not too far from the end here. And hey, you're going to set the first time. So for at least a short period, you're going to be P1. That's the important part, right?
Put that on my racing CV. First on the CMS hill climb.
You'll have a better racing CV than me. So would not blame you a bit.
Especially later on in the lap when people haven't done a lot of practice up here. It's very hard to tell what's flat, what isn't. What's a big break, what's a small break.
Interesting run here as Daniel Scott's getting near the end of his lap. Ben Borman has just kicked off on the move, so the Div 1-2 driver of Ben Borman is now on track. So we've now officially got 3 cars through. Daniel Scott sliding it there. Ewan, he saved it again.
The wall just helping out a little bit. With,
Yeah,
exactly, just straightening out. It's, I was surprised actually how much this hill climb is actually into town. This is obviously point to point with a town at the top as Daniel just goes over the finish line there. Surprised how deep into the town or how much sort of townish driving you have to do, but that's quite narrow and awkward in there.
Oh yeah, I mean that last bit is quite scary because you think it's faster than you think it is because of the buildings and stuff. So I think there'll be the biggest time difference will probably be in that last sector, I think, between drivers. But anyway, that's my rundown, guys. Thank you very much for having me. It was something.
Yeah, it was a good run, man. So currently you're sitting top of the table for the time being with a 8:07.5. So not too bad of a run at all.
Not bad. Better than my PB, so I'm happy with that.
Not too bad. And now you've got the afternoon to relax, go watch the stream, and kind of just hang out and see how everyone else goes.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Daniel.
Cheers.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
All right, Ewan. So,
Yeah. Very interesting to hear from him while driving as well. Hopefully we'll hear from some people after they've driven a little bit later on. Maybe the drive with the fastest time, watching other people try and beat theirs would be quite fun. But we'll see about that when we get there a little bit later on. Yeah, good to get the benchmark up, but 8:07. It's difficult to see that being the winning time by any means. David Junt did pretty well in practice. A pretty good driver as well, with lots of experience in R-Factor generally actually, but also this series. 5 out of 6 races he's been in the top 10 so far, so he is one to watch for sure. I think he will set the best time, but for the moment that's not too much of a surprise. No disrespect to Daniel, and I'm sure he wouldn't take any, but it wouldn't be too much of a surprise. 8:07 to beat.
yeah, Reese Gardner has just started his lap through here, Ewan, as well. He's across the start-finish line going, and I do want to point out, Daniel Scott was a 1:49.6 in Sector 1. Ben Borman has beat that by 10 seconds. So
wow. Even
though we've got David Junt going through, putting in purple sectors for his times, as I look back behind Ben Borman, who was lighting up the practice tables, him and Becky Ely kept swapping fastest times down there in the 7:20s. He is currently on pace for probably about that 7:20, and he is absolutely sending things through. But instead of interviewing drivers after they've run, let's pull somebody here before they run. Somebody we usually talk to before the green flag, but again, because of the uniqueness of the hill climb, we save the conversation. As David Junt decides to meet a guardrail for breakfast, let's talk to Mr. Ross Smith here. Ross, good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon, Bradley. Thanks for having me.
It's always fun to have you in here. How are you feeling confidence-wise going into this hill climb?
Okay, although I'm sort of out of sorts just because I'm off my normal rig on vacation, so I'm running a card table with a laptop and a G27, as I talked about before, and I'm just looking to survive. So yeah, I'm kind of sitting back and chilling and having fun watching everybody else.
Thankfully, you don't have to run till later, so you kind of know where your benchmark will be and where the time will be. Let's kind of talk about the uniqueness of a hill climb on that, because it's very unique to have this sort of setup where a lot of it, for drivers, they're used to running the full time, and for this, everyone's just kind of waiting on the next person and waiting to be told to go.
Yeah, it really builds a lot of anxiety, a lot of anticipation. David's all over the place. I'm watching Ben Borman up as he was wrapping up here at the top, and man, he's just so fast. And it's amazing watching some of these guys how they're able to put these times around just almost seemingly without effort. It's incredible as he comes across. And there he goes. Oh, that's going to be a good time under 8 minutes there. But yeah, it's definitely something unique, something we aren't typically used to here in the sports car realm of things. But I'm going to step aside and let you guys talk with David for a second, and I'll come back and we can chat a little bit more about it.
Yeah, that sounds good, Ross. So we'll grab David Junt here. I do see that Ben Borman is on an absolute stonker of a lap. He's 19 seconds up in the middle sector with an additional 10 seconds gained in sector 1. So he is absolutely sending it through. Reese Gardner is only about a second behind Ben Borman's time in the Alfa Romeo. And you can see that Ben is really, really working that car.
Yeah, no, he's going very well, and we were expecting that, to be honest, based on the practice times that we were seeing. As we were talking about, or you were saying earlier on, Ben Borman and Becky Ely were the ones who were really setting the pace before. So, if we can, I want to, have a more, a good look at Becky Ely's time as well, or well, not the time, sorry, the actual climb itself when we get to her, because only a few minutes away. She'll be going after Jason Weird, who's next, and the first of the Division 3 drivers. So we will, and they're on the move in the bottom right-hand side of the screen is Jason. So we'll have a look at that when we get to it as well. But it's going to be between her and Ben Borman, as you say, who's coming up into the final minute now, pretty much.
Yeah, and Ben's on a beautiful lap through. Becky will be the next car on track here as Jason has gotten on the move, and everybody seems pretty comfortable. We're not going to grab David. David doesn't have his mic at the moment, so we won't grab him. We'll let things go, but it's kind of, nobody seems like they're struggling too much. We've seen some wall taps. We've seen some different things on here, but for the most part, it seems like everybody's really got a good handle here in the Div 1-2 of getting these cars around the track.
Yeah, and that comes with a lot of practice, so you can tell that everyone's put the hours in, and it really is hours. I mean, just an hour will only do you, 7 runs or something, so it's not very many, and it really does take a lot of time to actually practice. But Ben Borman into town now, into Termilio, which is sort of in the very centre of Italy, if you like. If you think of Italy as a country where you're never really very far from the coast, this is probably as far as you can get, right in the middle of, right down the shin, if you like, of Italy, if you want to think of it as a boot. So it's Ben Borman now into town, final few corners, he is pushing, and then over the line now. What a time from him. 7 minutes, 18.8. That is 38 seconds quicker than anybody else so far.
I will tell you right now, 38 seconds quicker is absolutely crazy, but that is not going to stand too long. We'll start seeing people get very, very close here. Reese Gardner is in on a very consistent little lap, as I can see it. He has a 140 in the first sector, a 202 in the second sector, and Reese is on good pace. You can tell some of these drivers have got that sort of weight transfer under their belt. They understand what they're looking for when you see some of these cars sliding, and it's not that they're out of control, it's that they're just working these cars. These 1960s cars took a bit more sort of under the wheel to get them going and through. And
there goes Ely out onto the circuit. So this will be an important lap. Another one of the Lotuses. Reece Gardner looks like he's going to be comfortably the fastest Alfa Romeo, by the way, doing a very good lap. But Becky Ely is going to be the main challenger to Ben Boorman, you would say. Not too many, well, there are actually quite a few Div 1-2 drivers after this, but including the AM class, which is yet to even begin, by the way. But yes, we are seeing the main challenger, you would argue, to Ben Boorman here in the very early part of this session.
Yeah, and I'd say probably, if I had to guess, if based on practice times that I've looked at, if there's going to be one of the top drivers, it's either Ben Boorman or Becky Ely currently as it stands for who I would expect to be on top, because that Lotus is just, it's unique and it's the characteristic of it. It's a very, very quick car on these sort of tracks, and as long as they keep it together and keep this run, I think they'll be mostly okay. We're waiting to see where Reece lands, though, as Reece is hitting the 7-minute mark. Doesn't have much more time to go. Needs to just make sure it stays together here, as it's just a handful of seconds here before we hit that Ben Boorman time. And I don't think he'll beat the Ben Boorman time, but the question will be how far behind Ben Boorman will Reece Gardner be.
Yeah, exactly. Sim racing veteran, of course. He probably won't thank me for saying that, but he certainly knows his way around R Factor. He goes over the line in second comfortably. That was much as sure, but maybe how close he got to Boorman there was a bit of a surprise compared to practice. 2.5 seconds the gap. That definitely puts Reece Gardner in with a shout of maybe a podium place in class here today, because we weren't maybe expecting the gap to be quite that small. As we look at Becky Ely now, right on the ragged edge of crashing almost every single moment of this lap so far. It's been an extraordinary watch, I've got to say, and we'll enjoy doing so for the remainder. Just 1/10 up in the first sector.
Yeah, 1/10 up, and I do want to point out that this Lotus only has 115 horsepower, but it only weighs 450 kilograms. It is by far the lightest car of any car that we're going to see today, and you can tell by the way it's just floating around as it goes through. Now, Jason Whited is in the third sector of this lap here, has a 147 in the first, a 212 in the middle, and is running fairly decent there in a Ferrari 250, but is still fairly down on time in that Ferrari 250, and I don't think he'll get things in. So Becky Ely here, purple first sector, and is just staying nice and consistent and smooth. You can see that the Lotus is very compliant on this hill climb. Little bit of a wiggle there coming out of the corner, but then just back into it and just flat out.
Yeah, this feels like one of those events that can really suit the Lotus because of all of that. I mean, as we go through the chicane there, and the next driver out on their way, that's Fernando Ferrer, the first of the Div 1-2 AM drivers out onto the circuit. As we continue to watch Becky Ely in the main part of the screen. Yeah, I mean, it's no bigger than a saucepan, really, is it? The Lotus, it's quite extraordinarily small. It's extraordinarily small, I should say. And well, there you go. It is flying up this mountain at the moment.
Yeah, it absolutely is running through, and we have brought in here the man currently in second place, watching Becky Ely, who puts in another purple middle sector. Little wiggle there coming out of the left-hander, but has a purple first, a purple middle sector, but the fastest Alfa Romeo currently out on track, Reece Gardner. Reece, how was the run for you, friend?
It felt good. I mean, I wasn't expecting to beat Ben's time. The Lotus is going to be very hard to beat around here, as we're seeing with Becky right now. But I was just happy to get to the end, really. I feel like if everything was perfect, it could have been a 7:18, but I just backed off in a few key places. So, yeah, just focusing on getting to the line.
I gotta ask, as a driver doing a hill climb event like this, how do you balance that sort of decision of, well, I need to back off here just to survive, versus, no, I need to keep in the floor and possibly flip my car, as we heard Daniel Scott talk about is possible to do on certain aspects of the track?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a few key points around this place where backing off is ideal. The chicane towards the end of Sector 2, the tyre chicane, is one of the places where I knew that I wasn't going to push. And in Sector 3, which I'm not as familiar with as the other sectors, you know, I was just focusing a bit more on maintaining corner speed and just going gently through some of the corners that I wasn't quite familiar with. But everywhere else, I was pushing as hard as I could.
It looked like a good run from our side, and your times were very, very close. I know the Alfa Romeo is your primary car. Have you driven any of these other historic cars? And, does it kind of surprise you to see the Lotus going how it's going right now?
It really does surprise me to see the Lotus being as fast as it is, because I drove it in testing for this season, and it's a death machine. I wouldn't wish driving that thing on my worst enemy. It's snappy, it spins in weird ways. I'm just amazed that Ben and Becky are able to get the pace out of it that they are.
I was not expecting to hear that the open-top Lotus is a death machine. I seem to remember back round 1 with Daytona, I made a comment about I didn't like the Lotus, and I feel like James Parfit wanted to just string me by the rafters by my big toe. And, well, I'm glad to hear that my thoughts about the Lotus were very accurate.
It's definitely a difficult car to drive, so credit to Becky and Ben for being able to get the pace that they can out of it. But yeah, I've driven pretty much every car in the mod, and if I hadn't gone for the Alpha, I would have gone for the Shelby, honestly. That thing just feels like a dream to me, but the Alpha was calling my name. I wanted that Italian speedster that likes to rotate.
Fair enough. I respect that. So your run was good. You're currently sitting P2. Becky Ely is close to the end of her run, and it seems like she may knock you out here based on times I'm seeing, but if she does, it's not by much. Still a little bit of that third sector to go here. But I tell you what, Reese, it was a good run through, and the Alpha as Becky gets a big slide going. Man, yeah, no, that Lotus is a handful.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
It's fun to watch, though. I can't say a lot. It's a lot of fun to watch, though. But yeah, so congrats there. Currently sitting P2. We'll see how things go. What's your plans for the rest of the day?
Well, go to bed. It's like 2:30 in the morning for me.
You know what? That sounds like a solid plan. I would not blame you a bit for doing that.
Oh, there we go. Becky top 2.
Oh, Ewan, Becky's finished her lap, and I believe she is in P2.
Yeah, second place. Good lap still, but as we were just talking to Reese, just fell apart a little bit in the final sector. Few slides, and it's taken the lap away from her a little bit. 1.1 seconds slower than Ben Burman in that third sector, after being 1.5 tenths quicker in the first, and then half a tenth quicker in the second, but 1.1 seconds slower in the third. So that's where the 9-tenth margin came from. She'll be kicking herself a little bit about that final sector, I think, because the lap time was definitely in there.
It goes to show, though, that across a 7-minute, 19-second lap, one small mistake can cost you first to second place. Jason, hello, my friend. You are currently sitting P4 with a 7:56. The first Div 3 driver to go through. How'd the Ferrari feel across the track?
It was a little bit wobbly. I was maybe driving it a little hard. I really just got in it this morning, so I haven't spent a lot of time in the Ferrari as I just joined up with George here. So I'm still trying to get used to it, but all in all, I think it was a good clean run. So there was that. I didn't hit anything.
I mean, if there's ever a chance to get your first impression of a car, it's probably going to make sense for it to be a hill climb. So that's kind of the equivalent of, when you go to test drive a car when you're buying it, you don't want to drive it on the highway. You want to drive it, back roads and see how it does.
Exactly.
So kind of talk to me about how your switch over in to replace Barry DiMarzo came about this morning. So I know George just announced it about 2 hours ago. Kind of talk to me about how that switch came up.
Well, my teammate hasn't been around in a couple races, Kyle Bessa. So George had asked me yesterday about replacing Barry. So this morning I told him I definitely would, and here I am.
Well, it seems like, for a first run in a Ferrari, you were pretty comfortable there. 7:56, not a bad time at all. What's going to be your goal for the rest of the season working with George?
Try to beat Jerry in a couple. That's what he said. So I still need to do my homework on exactly where we stand. Actually, I kind of just jumped in here head first.
I'll tell you what, jumping in, you're not in a bad spot here as it stands. Currently running P3, and we'll see how the running order goes. So, Jason, it's a good run. We're going to let you go and enjoy your afternoon and watch the rest of the drivers.
Oh, definitely. Yep. Thanks. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Ewan. It is, we've got a few more people on the track here. We've got Craig Pullen currently on track starting a run. We're watching Fernando here making a run in the Porsche 904. What's been your standout so far here on this hill climb?
I think we've seen the standout two drivers from the hill climb. I have a feeling we've seen the best time, to be honest. Becky Ely has left the session, which means her time won't actually show up anymore on our screens, which is a little bit annoying, but she will be credited with that time. As I mistakenly said earlier on, they don't get 2 runs of this at all. They only get 1. So, as Reese was saying, people got to go and do other stuff like sleep, especially for those who are maybe on the eastern side of the world. Eastern Hemisphere. So we will let them do that, of course, but that means that their lap times may well disappear from our screens. But I'll just remember the fact that she was 9 tenths behind Ben Bowman at the time of leaving, as Fernando Ferreira sets a 8-minute 10.6. That's not really anywhere near what's showing to be the best Oh no, it's the best AM time for the Div 1-2, not AM of Div 3, so they're in different classes. Ferreira setting the benchmark then, and all of the other Div 1-2 AM drivers, there's another 5 of them to go, will be coming up in the next, actually it'll be about 40 minutes or so until we've seen the final of those drivers, but we'll still have about 10 more to go when we finish with that class.
Yeah, it won't be too bad at all, so we'll see how things run as we get our next driver on the track here, and that is going to be that beautiful, beautiful purple machine. That is going to be the wonderful Luca Tavernari. And I wanted to put extra syllables in his last name, and I'm not going to do that here as we get things going. But I do want to talk to the wonderful lady who is currently P2 by 9 tenths of a second here, Becky Ely.
Hello. How are you, Brad?
Becky, I'm not doing too bad. How are you?
I've been better, but I'm on the road to recovery, so luckily I got to get a little bit of practice in for this. Not as much as I'd like, but enough for a decent result, luckily.
You were lighting up the practice tables from what I remember seeing, and seeing the practice before the session. You were swapping times with Ben Borman back and forth, and you had him in the first and second sector. It seems like just right there at the end, lost a couple of tenths. Kind of talk me through your run.
Well, what happens is I go and I'm like, taking a really slow and steady wins the race. Could not be truer here. It just really gentle on the brakes. Ease it into the corners, ease slowly on the throttle, but it being the Lotus, it does want to kill you, and many Lotus test drivers lost their lives practicing for this race, so we need a salute for them. But I didn't actually learn Sector 3 very well. I haven't quite got there yet. I was 7 seconds off Ben this morning in Sector 3, so another day or two and I'd get there in Sector 3, but I'm not there yet.
I mean, you seem solid from our side, and this seems like a track that really, really benefits the Lotus, and specifically the Div 1-2 cars in general. So, has it been that way for you all through practice as well, that this is just a track that suits the Lotus really well?
Yeah, it does, but good God, is it hard to tame around here. The rear end, just even if you're easing it really gently, the rear end wants to kill you. Like, my car setup is a bit loose, but then I have the brake bias quite far forwards to really keep it stable under braking. And I'm sure you saw, still, the rear end just wanted me to die.
I think that's just how that Lotus is in general, though. It's fun to watch. It
Yeah.
seems fun to drive. It's just kind of a handful.
Oh, it's the most fun car I've ever driven in my life. I love almost every second in it.
Almost every second. I like that you put almost in there. Becky, do you have any hill climb experience?
I did a few hill climb events on R Factor 2 last year, actually, with the European hill climb people, who are a lovely bunch, and some of them actually are in the real European hill climb event. So,
Craig Pullen with a big barrier hit there going through, trying to keep the cars on track seems to be a big thing. Becky, I'm going to ask you in general, with the hill climb experience you have, did it make prepping for this a little bit easier for you?
not really. I only did 3 in last year. I more thought about it like Targa. It's pretty similar to Targa, really. It's just one sector of Targa is the whole thing.
I hadn't thought of it like that. I hadn't thought about the fact that that was kind of how this is set up. So that's a very good observation, and I'm gonna have to stew on that one for a little bit. What's kind of advice for people that are looking to get into hill climbs? What advice can you offer up, for say me, who's never done one, that wants to jump in?
Just jump in, crash lots, slowly learn the track. I saw a great thing. I can't remember who said it, but someone who does real racing said, in real racing, you learn a track by going too slow and then slowly speeding up. In sim racing, you learn a track by crashing and then going, oh, I need to go a little bit slower there. And hill climbing is basically do that at every single corner until you don't do it anymore. That's how I learn anyway.
That actually makes a lot of sense. So, Becky, I appreciate it. You're currently sitting P2 in the standings, so we'll let you go enjoy the rest of your day and relax, and we'll see how things go for you, as Craig Pullen has a big shunt there in the final sector, and that actually might be Craig Pullen's run over in that Alfa Romeo.
Can I just say congratulations to Ben Borman for his fantastic run. Ben is absolutely amazing and has been a great help for me learning this car as well. We actually ran totally different setups here, but yeah, it was a great lap by Ben and well deserved. Hopefully he will stay there.
Now, time will tell here as we're getting through drivers, but Becky, we do appreciate it as always, and we'll talk to you later, I'm sure. We'll talk to you later, whether it's later today or later in the season.
Well, have a good one, and thank you for having me.
You too. Thank you, Becky. Ewan, we've seen our first victim of the day.
We have, yeah. DNF for Craig Pullen, I'm afraid, after that crashed very much towards the end of his lap, actually. He was in the final sector. It wasn't setting the world on fire, but he was going pretty well, I've got to say. But I'm afraid that's the end of his lap, and you can't redo it. I think that only very exceptional circumstances will allow you to redo your lap. So unfortunately, that is the end for Craig Pullen. Dan Herlock on the circuit now, though, which is a pretty important one in the championship. We were just talking to Becky Ely there. Speaking of the Div 1-2 championship, Ely is a good 16 odd points away, 16 and a bit odd points away from Herlock, nearly 30 away from Elko Bussing, who's leading the standings at the moment in Div 1-2 by quite some distance. So if Herlock can get ahead of Ely here somehow, then that would be good news. But I have a feeling, based on the practice times, that both Dan Herlock and Elko Bussing are going to lose some points to Becky Ely, and of course to Ben Burman as well, although Burman has only 8.6 points so far this season, is quite a long way off in the standings. So a pretty important championship run coming up for Dan Herlock. Just set off now.
And let's just complicate Dan Herlock's run a little bit. Dan Herlock has a sprained wrist, but is still running this lap. So remember that.
Well,
Dan Herlock has a sprained wrist.
We are going to see Luca Tavaneri, by the way, coming in here. Should be third, I think, based on the time. There's quite a big. Fourth, won't it? Because Becky Ely is not in the list, but will be there afterwards. Let's have a look though if Tavaneri can get there. Oh dear. Bit wide. That's the crucial sort of final corner, if you like, before the big run up towards the end. You don't really stamp on the brakes too hard after this. It's sort of flowy side to side through the back end of town now, and then you point yourself up towards the line and get to the end. Yeah, that's pretty comfortably fourth. Nowhere near Reece Gardner's time, but also quite comfortably ahead of Davin Yunts and Jason Whitteard's times as well.
Yeah, he's put himself in a good position there in sort of that middle ground where we didn't have times. We've got a lot of competitive sort of 756s. We've got the competitive front of the field that's running. There's nobody in that middle ground, so I think Luca Tabernabbi has put himself in a solid spot. Adam Gray is out on track right now, and Adam Gray is going to be starting out our Div 1-2 AMs. Or, sorry, not starting. Fernando's ran. He will be the second of our 4 that I see in session that are going through. But we've got Mr. Ross Smith back here. And Ross, how are things going in the Storm Gang simulation world?
Pretty good. We're just mostly focusing on getting the next year's cars in place, getting things ready for some of the upcoming races that we have this season, like Coda, and there are a couple historic things that we're trying to put together and have ready to go. But yeah, we're just plugging along, trying to get everything ready before it happens, and having a good time.
Next year's cars, do you mean that the next season of Historics is 1965? Am I interpreting correctly?
No, that's incorrect, James. That's not.
Well, you know, listen, I'm trying to make sure that James doesn't fire me, so I have to at least ask Ross. Otherwise, I'm not doing my duties to Mr. Parfit.
Yeah, Brad, that's fine. No, it's going pretty well. They'll be all set to go. Our team is going through and doing some pretty extravagant work as far as getting them ready. BOP is going to be a huge thing for what's going on, even though it's only one class. There's a lot going on inside of it. Or I should say, category. But yeah, we should be all set to go. It'll be a great historic series next year.
I'm really looking forward to it. Are we bringing hill climbs back next year? Because I tell you what, so far in, I'm loving the idea of this hill climb of just watching drivers try to flat out drive their cars.
Yeah, this is a pretty awesome style event. I'm glad that we've got another one coming up towards the backside of the season. But no, I don't know that there are any. I don't think there are. But yeah. I think you'll still be impressed with what we have to offer, though.
I'm looking forward to it personally. Any big balance changes or anything that's happened in the historics that we should be aware of that might be skewing results or changing anything?
No, nothing here. I mean, it's pretty locked in at this point. There's really not a whole lot that's going to change. If there is, it might just be like maybe some fuel things as far as the Div 3s slightly. I don't know though. I don't think there will be. And we might have maybe something of the same with the Divs 1 and 2s, but I think I should probably hop out of here because you guys are going to have a couple people lined up for some interviews, but I'll be back.
Yeah, we'll catch up with you throughout the event, Ross, so definitely get yourself ready to go, and we'll catch up later, okay? Ewan, how are things going on the hill climb world as Dan Herlock is just, busting a drift through hairpin 2 here?
Yeah, he's going quite well, actually. He's not going to get anywhere near Becky Ely, but he could at least reduce the damage that she's going to surely inflict on him and possibly Elka Bussink as well in the drivers' standings today. We've just seen a new best time from Adam Gray in the Div 1-2 AM class. So that is the second place driver in the championship, possibly putting himself into a good position here. Eric Moinet has just set off in Div 1-2, so he's going to be one to watch, as is Santiago Danco as well, who has set off at the moment. He's 5th in the standings, the race winner from Spa, and so, he should have set off by now. No, he doesn't. No, he hasn't. He's not here, so apologies for that. Santiago Danco is in the running order, because he was meant to be here, but it doesn't look like he is, and so he is going to fall a bit further behind in the championship. Anyway, that doesn't matter. It's very much between Adam Gray and Eric Moinet in the top of the drivers' standings there, and so the time for Eric coming up in a few minutes' time is going to be very interesting indeed after Dan Herlock has been over the line.
Yeah, I think things are going to get really, really spicy as we get near the end here. As Dan Herlock is just sliding that Alpha around. He's really trying to extract pace, and he's pretty comfortable there. It seems like he's doing fairly okay as we go along, and we'll see kind of where things go near the end and how this sort of action happens. I'm interested to see what his time is, because he seems like he's on pace as he comes to the final bit here. Goes across the sidewalk again. He is just letting that Alfa Romeo slide around.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you got to do, to be honest, in these cars. Oh, no, he's got it wrong, though.
Oh!
He's got it wrong right at the end. That's the very last braking zone there, that left-hander. And he's lost a wheel, so he's going to come across the line with 3 wheels on his wagon. And I'm afraid he's going to lose even further ground to the likes of Beck Healy in the championship here. What a disaster for Dan Herlock. Oh, he's in the wall again.
Oh.
Dear, dear. And that's the final turn there. He'll be okay now. That's the final turn. He just needs to power up towards the line, but he will lose points today. A 7:40. That probably added a good 20 seconds to his time. It certainly cost him a place to Luca Tavaneri. It might not have cost him any more than that, but even so, it certainly cost him at least 1 place.
I have a feeling that is a driver we should not talk to in a little bit, because that's all the way down, was on pace, and lost it right at the end. Was on pace for a very, very good run, but that is the nature of these hill climb events, is sometimes right at the end that happens. That hurt to watch, though.
Yeah, it is. It was a very small mistake with very big consequences, and that's exactly what you get in hill climb. This is public road after all. There's not runoff, tarmac runoff. There's barely any laybys around here, even on this mountainous road. It is so punishing when you get it wrong, and that's a prime example of it there for Dan Herlock, I'm afraid. He will likely lose positions in the overall after this as a result of that, although there aren't too many more in his class still to go. There are still 7 from my count, but we'll see how many of those can actually jump ahead of Herlock, and we'll see how many will jump over because he had that late crash, or whether they would have overtaken him anyway. We'll wait and find out on that front. But Eric Monet now is in the final couple of minutes or so. Interesting sector times from him so far, I've got to say. 1 minute 48 first of all in the first sector is a bit quicker by 9/10 of a second than the best time in this class so far, but a 2 minute 16 in the second is 1.4 seconds slower. So he's about half a second down, and that's not going to help.
Oh, big off there in the hairpin going through, and now he'll need to recover from that, but I think that is going to add some time. He's definitely not going to beat the 7:18 here at the end based on his times, but where can he land himself against the likes of Luca Tavernavi? Like, where can he land himself against Dan Herlock? And that will be, I think, the $1 million question.
Well, he won't be aiming against those guys. He's in the 1-2 AM class, so he won't be aiming against those guys. But he will be aiming against Adam Gray, who's the current best time, or the what would you call the leader, I suppose, of the 1-2 AM class. Fernando Ferreira as well is in second place in that class. So it is it is those two Eric Monet is really aiming at. There's about 7 1-2 AM drivers in the field today, maybe even less than that. Yeah, maybe 6 actually, but anyway, he's coming in the final couple of corners right now into the flowing final section into town, and we're about half a minute away from knowing whether he will be leading the class very shortly or not.
Yeah, we'll see how that Porsche 904 is handling after those couple of offs he's had. But Dan Herlock is here to join us. And Dan Herlock, my friend, with a 740.3, currently sitting 5th place overall. How was the run?
Well, it was alright at the start. Then sector 3 happened. And the missing wheel, I imagine, might have looked a bit comical. Fortunately, it's a sim, so I've not destroyed a priceless car. You know, that's a plus.
It was interesting to see, and I see that Tony McCoffin has decided to leak some audio into our chat. Then it just says, "Oopsies. This is fine. This is fine. This is fine." I would like to imagine that that is not what you said, but we'll say that that is the radio-friendly version.
No, that is actually what I said. But yeah, no, that's sort of my phrase of "this is fine," even when it's going wrong. I do tend to say it's fine. So, but,
is that kind of
yeah?
Is that kind of the nice part of being in sim racing, though? As Eric Monet comes across the line with an 803, is that kind of the nice part of being in sim racing? Is if something like that happens, you know, you're not actually damaging personal property, you're not destroying a priceless car. You can kind of just say "oopsies" and go.
Yeah, it is a plus. I mean, if you imagine doing that in a real life situation, one, you might not be alright, and two, you have definitely destroyed a very priceless car, just because you forget where the track's going briefly, where I lapse of concentration, and Darnell plays sprained my wrist yesterday, so I didn't have any practice for today, but...
I was going to ask, how is your wrist feeling as we see Busink getting out, and it looks like maybe tagging the pit wall there, trying to get going at the line.
Yeah, no, the wrist is holding up just about. I had to do most of it one-handed up the hill just to avoid aggravating the injury any further, but yeah, it is what it is. Football happens.
Any fun plans for the rest of your day to kind of take care of that wrist there? You gonna ice it, or you gonna go play more football?
We'll probably get some ice on it for a little while, and then just join back into the Chaos, which is the voice channel with everyone watching.
We'll let you jump back up there, Dan, and we'll see how the rest of the hill climb goes. Currently, you're sitting P5. Looks like a pretty solid time for you, and you know it keeps you in a good position here for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's not too bad, thank you.
All right, take it easy, Dan. All right, and Eric Monet is on track, but it says his car is already damaged on the go. I don't know what's up with that. Eric Monet is saying the car undrivable?
Eric Monet's finished, I would have thought. So he should be remaining in the pit lane. He has finished while we were talking to Dan there. 1.4 seconds behind Adam Gray, who is still leading the Div 1-2 AM class. At the moment, we haven't got any drivers challenging actually on the circuit, but we will soon have the likes of David Becker-Celadon, and that'll be it. So just one more driver for Adam Gray to see out before he can fully declare himself the winner of the class for this round.
And speaking of Adam Gray, we've got Adam Gray here to talk to. Kind of talk me through, how was your run, Adam?
To be honest, not too good. It was a slow lap, but one good thing out of it, I didn't crash. Made a bonus. But I'm not really like this track, to be honest.
And how come?
Well, it's a good track. I just got on with it, and plus I'm running off my son's PC. I haven't got my own because it's getting repaired, so it's probably struggling as well.
Well, it seems like you did pretty okay. You're currently in the lead of Div 1-2 AM. What's kind of the end goal for you here? Are you just fingers crossed at this point to wait and see where David Baca-Celadon goes? Or, you know, how much more do you think you had in that run?
To be honest, I think I was just glad to cross the line, to be honest, because during practice I was really struggling, and I know I can go faster, but I thought I'd take it easy on the actual race, just finish the line, get some points, because at the moment there's a battle between me and Eric in our division, so I'm only, I think, 3, maybe 2 points behind currently.
Yeah, it seems like you're in a pretty good spot here as it sits. So this hill climb here at Coppa Carotti, and then of course we do have the hill climb later in the season. Anything you're going to take from this run and take into Province Alps when we go all the way at the end of November?
Yeah, more practicing. By then I should have my own PC back again, so I won't be jumping on my sons at the last minute.
That would probably help, I hope. Has your son been kind of nice to sharing, or have you kind of had to throw the elbow and say, can I practice now?
No, so I basically take it off and say, right, I need to practice because I'm in a run for the championship. So it's mine for the time being till I get mine back.
Has that worked well for you? Is, I guess, the $1 million question.
He had no choice really. It sounds awful, but he had no choice. And he understands, racing is my passion. I watch Formula One, the hypercars in the WEC. So racing is my passion, and if I missed this, I wouldn't be a happy bunny.
I can understand that. Your final class competitor here for the day, David Baca, has just hit the track, so we'll keep an eye on his run. And Adam, we'll let you go kind of enjoy the rest of your day and watch, and we'll see where things are at here as Scarpope crosses the line. 7:44.8. And we'll see where David crosses here in about 7 minutes time. But Adam, have a great rest of your day, okay?
Yep, cheers. Thanks for the chat.
Thank you. All right, Ewan. So several drivers have ran through, lots of varying times. Aliko Busink is currently purple first sector, but is down 2 seconds in the middle sector.
Looks like it for the moment. He is in with contention of setting the best time of the Porsche, because that is currently held by Eduardo Beninca with a 7:43. I think that's going to be pretty comfortably beaten by Aliko Busink, but I think the real thing here is whether he can beat Dan Hurlock with a 7:40. I think he's going to manage that as well, actually, as things stand. That would do him wonders as far as the championship is concerned. He's currently leading that at the moment by 13 points over Dan Hurlock after wins at Daytona and Le Mans and podiums at Spa and Rome as well. So he's in a good place. He will concede points to Becky Ely, I'm pretty sure, although even that is not entirely sure at this stage. Certainly going to gain some on Hurlock though, and this could be a day where Busink again extends his championship lead in this class.
Yeah, we'll see where Busink lands here as he goes through. John Ewan is the driver in the bottom right who is running through. As we get some picture-in-picture action here, as Busink's going through near the end of the lap, John Ewan is currently sitting in the middle of the lap and is near the top of the hill here and is just continuing to run through. Busink is pretty comfortable, and you can see every driver has a slightly different approach, but the one thing that's universal with all of these historic cars that I enjoy, and we've seen it time after time through the season here, Ewan, is the drivers love to slide the back end and just drift the car around.
Yeah, again, you've kind of got to. It's really the best way of driving these cars. They haven't got the aerodynamic downforce that we do these days that would really help in, especially these higher speed corners at the start and at the end of the lap as well when you're coming into town. And so instead you just got to sort of four-wheel drift your way around, and that's exactly what we're seeing here from the very best. Aliko Busink doing that right now. He's just got to be wary of the Dan Hurlock corner, which is here. This is what I'm going to start calling it. And then you slam on the brakes here into that left hand. He got that slightly wrong, I think, but it's still going to be a decent time. Whether it's better than Reece Gardner's, I'm not entirely sure. Again, he's sliding so much. Oh my goodness. It's like he's doing a drift competition, but somehow he saves it, leaves the tyre marks on the road. He left everything out on the road, but he will come across the line and be fourth. When you add in Becky Ely's time, that won't be good enough for a podium, but he will extend his championship lead by a few points at the end of the day.
I think something has happened to John Ewan as he runs through, because he is about to be caught up by David Baca here as they go through in the middle sector. I don't know if there was an issue with how it was released or what it is, but looking at where they're at on track, on my side, they are very, very close compared to where we've seen other drivers here as we get picture-in-picture. Yeah, they're not that far separated. Will John Ewan, wow, that is, I can say your name, but I can't say his last name. Will John Ewan be lapped here and be the first driver to actually have to let another car pass?
I don't think so. He's going quicker. I know he's not that far ahead, but he's going quicker. He's 1.3 seconds quicker in the first sector, another half second quicker in the second, so I think he'll be okay. It's David Baca-Celadon in the AM class who is up behind him, so it shouldn't be a problem, but there's clearly been some sort of mistake by one of them or someone, because as you say, they shouldn't be released quite so close to one another for risk, as you mentioned, of clashing with one another. But then again, I mean, even 1 minute should be enough, to be honest with you. I mean, the spread in the field, we've seen 51 seconds. I mean, the only danger you'd ever have is if Ben Burman went off after 1 minute after Fernando Ferreira at the moment, and even that you wouldn't see any traffic involved. So, you know, it really is not a concern to be coming across. It's exceptionally rare to come across someone on a hill climb.
Yeah, that is true. And looking through at where everything is at, it looks like what's happened is David has just went before he was supposed to. Maybe just a little, big slide there from John Uyen, who gets that Alfa Romeo back underneath him, but had a little bit of a wiggle. But it does look like it is David Celadon that went a little too early, but he seems pretty okay here. As we get Aliko Busink coming in, and Aliko Busink currently sitting nice and pretty in P4 overall in Porsche 904. How are you feeling after your run?
A bit sad actually, because it wasn't going as planned. There was a bit in the at the start of the third sector where I got lost. I was like, oh no, where am I? And then I hit the wall twice, I think. But yeah, it was still quite fun.
You had a purple overall first sector, so out of the first sector at least, you were faster than anyone else. And you went a little bit down in the middle, and then of course a little bit further down in the third sector. How hard is it to memorize this track?
Oh, I don't think it's that hard. But if you start practicing like 3 days in advance, then it's a bit hard to memorize it. But yeah, if you put in the time, I think it's quite. There's a few bits that are looking similar, but you can get around that. But yeah, just put in the time, which I apparently didn't do enough.
How much time did you put in? Because I know a lot of drivers have said varying amounts of time, so now I'm just curious how much practice everyone put in. How much?
I think I had 15 runs. So
Okay.
15 times where I actually finished the track, and I've crashed into turn 1 or turn 2.
Okay.
So,
okay.
yeah, it's about 15 runs.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. Anything that you're going to take away from your sort of experience with this hill climb to November when we run our next hill climb in the Alps?
I don't know about the pack yet, but I want to win.
I think that is a solid plan.
Seeing that it's possible, especially with the first sector I've had, I should have pulled that through the entire hill climb. But yeah, sometimes you get that, and sometimes you don't. Wasn't meant to be this time.
Yeah, but you're still in a pretty good position, honestly, though. P4 overall, and you're pretty comfortable with where you're at, as we've got about half of the field that has ran through on laps, or is on a lap currently, as we see David Celadon currently running through. What's your plans for the rest of the hill climb?
Sitting out and watching, especially Tony McCoppel, and seeing if he can beat my time. He looked pretty strong in practice. He was way up there as well, so he might go. He might go below like 720. So let's hope he gets there.
Yeah, we'll see where he goes, because he is going to be the next one to go out on track, as David Celadon just finished. But Aliko, we'll let you go hang out for the afternoon, and good run from you, and we'll see where you're at the end of the day.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thanks, you too. All right, and that is Aliko Busink going through.
Oh, God.
Oh!
I'll have a day.
Big crash from Oliver Day.
Yeah, that'll be it. Craig Pullen was the first DNF earlier, and that's our second DNF. Oliver Day has DNF'd, having completed the least amount of the circuit of anybody. So that's a real shame for him. He's part of the Div 1-2 class, which we don't have many contenders left of now. We've got another one of them just setting off now. Tony McCuffin is off on his way, and Jules Lalonde will be on his way pretty shortly as well. In a few, I don't actually see him in the running order at all, but he will be on his way at some point, and that will be it for Div 1-2. So Ben Burman has really not got very long to wait now until he knows whether or not he'll be the round winner.
And based on what we're seeing so far, it seems like if you're not driving a Lotus or an Alpha, it's going to be pretty challenging because the Lotus and the Alpha are the only ones that are going through. Even though we did see Busink have that purple first sector and the best sector 1 overall of anyone, he lost it in the middle in the third sector here. So Tony McGoffin is on track now, starting his run. We'll see if Tony has enough in the tank here to bring it to Ben Borman as he runs through in that Porsche 904. He seems like he's pretty comfortable and pretty solid so far as we start the lap, and we'll see where things go.
Yep, we will. It's a good chance, actually, for the first time in a while to see a full run here. We were on board for the very first lap of Daniel Scott earlier, but we haven't been on board with one for a while since, so it's a good chance to have a look at the whole climb. By the way, while we were just having that interview there as well, the Div 1-2 AM class finished as well. That all of the drivers have gone up the hill now there. David Bakker-Celadon should be the winner in an all Porsche category. He's at 7:51.2. That was 11 seconds quicker than Adam Gray, who will be second. Eric Mounier, who will be third and lose that little bit of ground to his main championship rival in the championship. And then fourth will be Fernando Ferreira. Fourth out of 4 in the Div 1-2 class. So that's the first of the classes complete, and David Bakker-Celadon is the winner, or should be.
Yeah, it seems like he had a very good run up the hill, getting that Porsche 904 to go through. So David Bakker, very nice and comfortable there with his win. The big question right now is going to be, as we get this through, Tony McGoffin is the next driver around the hill, and we'll see if Tony has enough in the tank to bring it for Div 1-2 overall before we start our run of Div 3s that will start off with, well, we've had Johnny Gutierrez already go, so our first Div 3 driver will be George Angelides that runs through, and I believe there will be a moment there. We're waiting on things to go through.
Well, you say first, it's actually Jason Whitted, who's already been ages ago, who was the first for some reason. He was mixed among the Div 1-2 cars, wasn't he? So he's already gone, but I take your point. It's the sort of first of the real run of Div 3 cars, as you say, will be George. And so we look forward to that in a few moments' time, but the first of the two halves of the field pretty much complete now.
And this is going to be where I think crunch time really hits, because now you know what you're running against here. And Ross, you can probably attest to this. Now that Div 1 and 2 AMs are wrapped up and Div 1-2 is just about done on track here, you kind of know what you're having to run against there as a Div 3 car. What's your expectations here for your hill climb?
Well, before I get into that real quick, I do have some housekeeping. We actually have one other entry that needs to go on, which is Gilles Lalonde. He actually just got on track. For some reason, he missed I don't know if it's a sign-up sheet or posting, but he is going to be your last Div 1 and 2 pro to get going. So he's out there with Tony, and then they'll wrap it up, and then George will kick on. And before we have that, George is going to make a small break so we can get Mika and Becky back in, so those results can show up on the time report.
Yeah, that will definitely make things a little bit simpler for everyone to look at on the screen to tell the times. How has this impressed you so far? Scale of 1 to 10 of your impression of the hill climb after about half of the drivers have gone out?
The event's been a blast. I mean, we've been having a nice chat down in the main Discord, just people hanging out. There's been some moments as you've seen on here, like with Oliver Day, and that of course that wonderful finish on 3 wheels that we saw earlier. Was that Herlock who did that, or was I think that was? I can't remember now, but
it was.
Yeah, that was pretty great. But yeah, it's been a blast. Everybody hanging out, just kind of having a good time. You got Olympics kind of going on in the background, so it really has this nice paddock feel, and it's totally unique for the series. So we're really enjoying all of this. But yeah, it's kind of back to your other question regarding just getting ready for the Div 3 runs. From the guys in the lower category watching Tony sideways, man, they've put on a good show. Some doing maybe not as well as they'd like. Others doing admirably. I mean, obviously Ben, Becky doing a phenomenal job in the Lotus. I mean, if we knew of any track, this one would probably be the one where that Lotus was going to dominate, and they did disappoint. Ben actually made a funny announcement during the MNRL race on Tuesday when he said the Lotus actually has a bit of an advantage because it can sweep out an extra 2 feet on the corners because it's so low it goes under the guardrail. So, little skateboard going along. But
oh boy.
Yeah, so we're having a blast. I'm sure. I mean, these Div 3 guys, some of the ones that are running the top of the charts in practice, they just have the track memorized and they just know exactly where to apply throttle and everything. There's no question. It's not like Targa where you just kind of just get through chunks and sectors. Like here, you kind of know every single bend because it's about a lap at the Nürburgring, effectively, or the Nordschleife, I should say. So it's not like it's impossible. You know where you're going. It's a little bit different. I mean, I don't know that too many of these guys coming in here were familiar with this course from other platforms or anything, but certainly some of them have. They've committed it to memory, and it shows. So it's very impressive.
It's been really interesting to kind of watch all the way around, just here in the booth and kind of see how things are going. And I'm glad to hear that there's that party atmosphere going on up in what I'm going to basically call the virtual paddock for this race, because it is cool to kind of see all the drivers just hanging out, watching the race go as times go in and as things go through. Anything from these Div 1-2 runs that the Div 3 drivers are taking away to kind of help, or is it sort of just, it's a different category, the cars are different, there's nothing I can do?
I think the only thing that the Div 3 guys can really point to as Tony's finishing up his run here is that anytime that they might swing it too far out or hit a barrier or a tire or something in a spot that you're kind of familiar with, it's another reminder you gotta keep your head on and don't try and throw it all into a single corner or a single go or anything like that, because you could easily screw it up. Just going a little bit too long into a braking zone can be critical. It'll end your entire existence. So you just got to be careful. You gotta get to the end. Obviously, you want to score and get as much time as you can. You know, as far as like just being able to hit all of your sectors and everything, right? But you can easily throw it away.
That is very true, and it seems like most people, really, if they've had an issue with the exception of Oliver Day, it's been the third sector. That's where we've really seen the moments happen.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, the track, it's an interesting course because you have, I mean, it's kind of like Targa Florio Light, where it's a lot of switchbacks, fast sections, and they meet up with some spots you're not quite sure if you should take it faster than you're about to or anything, but obviously, like I said, when you know the course, it makes a big difference. But it's kind of broken up. You've got, you know, the first sector kind of, you come into those two switchbacks and that sort of defines that area, and then you have a nice quick section, and then you get into about where it hits halfway at that slalom, the chicane area with those barriers. And then it kind of opens up and you got a few other areas where you just kind of got to stay on top of things because you're going to come up to more switchbacks. There are some almost switchbacks. And then once you're past those, you start getting towards Ciminello, where you see all the town stuff popping up. And you get excited because you think, oh man, I'm almost done. But yeah, you have to kind of contain yourself because it's very easy to forget exactly where you are. You can overshoot, hit a wall, rip a tire off, and it's over. Yeah, and obviously it's at the end of the course, so if you've ruined yourself earlier on in a practice run, you're not going to get that exposure as much as you do on that first half of the track.
Yeah, it's unique in that way to try to learn things, but it seems like everyone has done really well, and everyone's done really well in learning the track, running the track. It seems like everything's been organized really well. I haven't seen anything too crazy as Gilles Lalonde here is running through. He's nearing the end of his run at the moment as he gets a big slide through, catches it, and keeps it going here. But Russ, we're not too far away from things starting, so we'll see how things go, and that housekeeping will, of course, need to come underway here. Man, Gilles Lalonde still sliding that Porsche 904 around.
putting it. That was a good time. Good job, Dojo. Yeah, I'll let you guys go here so you can get a couple interviews here on those who just finished, and then we're going to kick it into the Div 3s.
Awesome, Ross. We will talk to you in a bit again. Good luck on your run.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Ewan. So it's been a good run. We're getting to the point where Div 3s are going to hit. Div 1-2 is all buttoned up and polished, and of course we've had some Div 3s already run. Jason Whited has ran, and that going through. We'll see how things kick off here in just a moment as we try to get everybody back into the server here and try to bring some more drivers down.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether people are trying to be brought back in or whether they're the opposite, because I just saw Ben Berman leave from the head of the session, but Becky Ely has just joined back in again, so not really sure what's going on there. I can see 12 Div 3 drivers waiting to get ready and go, even though I can see 13 in the running order, so I don't know who's missing. Don't ask me who's missing, but there is one, as far as I can work out, missing here. Of course, the two names down towards the bottom who we weren't expecting at the start of the day, still see them down there. Oliver Day and Craig Pullen both crashed on their laps, and so that means it's the end for them. It would be a DNF for them, but Ben Berman, who's just rejoined back into the session now, will be the winner of Div 1-2. He may even have the fastest time overall. Still not sure about that, because the Div 3 drivers are still yet to go, and some of them are very quick indeed, but I think Berman is in a good place for this, and he's certainly won Div 1-2, because that class has now finished. It's all Div 3 cars from here.
Yeah, and I think the Div 3 is going to be interesting, because for me it's going to be really interesting to watch and see how they handle it, because these cars are significantly heavier than those Div 1-2s, and we'll see how things go. And George Angelidis whips it out on track. He's going to get things going there in that Ferrari 250 GTO, a 1,043 kilogram car with 310 horsepower, revs redline at 7,500 RPM, a fun car that is balanced overall in its handling according to the cheat sheet that I keep available. We'll see if the quote-unquote balanced handling makes it run faster, because of course the battle is always between the Ferraris and the Shelby Daytonas, and every once in a while the Corvette C2s, and George Angelidis just giving a guardrail, a little love smooch there as he gets his lap underway.
There's a fairly significant hit on the wall there for him. Mike Bell will be after him, as long he is here, so that'll be good. And then Jerry Chen. So those two are the big names in terms of the Div 3 AM Championship. There are only 3 Div 3 AMs in this session, so that means that John Mayer being the other ones, that was the same at Rem last time we went racing. So it will be between Chen and Angelidis, I would imagine, for the best time. However, George Angelidis didn't start particularly well there, getting into the wall pretty early in the first minute of his lap.
See, the good news is, even if your first minute of your lap isn't perfect, you still have another 7 minutes to go to try to get things going. His target time, he needs to beat a 7:56.7, and we'll see how things go. He is going to be carrying that damage through, and basically you just cross your fingers and your toes, and you hope that it's minor and that it doesn't affect your run too far through the end. And man, even with that little wall tap, he's still purple. Sector 1 up by 0.3 of a second as he continues through and gets things going. And we'll see how George Angelidis gets it together as he runs through. The next driver running behind George Angelidis will be Mike Bell. And Mike Bell brings in the Shelby Daytona. So if we're going to see Ford versus Ferrari, it is going to be right off the bat to see which one of these two cars goes a little bit faster.
It will be straight away football, though these two are, as I said before, in different classes. We've got just the one Corvette in this field as well. It's roughly mixed otherwise between Ferraris and Shelbys, although slightly in favour of the Ferraris, I think. Maybe they're equal actually, but yeah, it's a pretty balanced order. 46-8 from George Angelidis first of all. That's going to put him right around 10th place, to be honest. As Michael Locke comes back, I apologise, I didn't quite realise he had set a lap time early on. Michael Locke has got the best lap time in Div 1-2 AM, so he will be the winner of that class, but that was set quite some time ago.
It was indeed, and of course we had some of the issues with the drivers staying in the server as we go through. Our next car is going to hit the track, and that is Mike Bell, so we'll see where Mike Bell can land his car as he gets this lap wound up and underway straight out of the starting gate and gets on track to get things moving here, Ewan. Ooh, big slide early on.
Not a good start. Nearly 20 seconds in and already getting very close to the wall, but this is the characteristic of the first part of the lap. It takes you a long time until you get into the switchbacks, which some people may be a little bit more comfortable with. It's certainly a little bit less fraught with danger when you're going at slower speed, because if you do go off, the damage won't be quite so bad when you hit the wall. But in that first part, it's really heads up. It's very difficult indeed as George Angelis goes over that second sector timing point now with a 2-minute 10.3. Again, that's going to be outside the top 10 overall in these heavy Div 3 cars.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me to see him outside of the top 10 overall, just knowing how not nimble these Div 3 cars are. Just understanding sort of the weight they carry and how much they have to fight. It really doesn't surprise me that this is set up that the Div 1-2s really take advantage of it. It's the same thing as what we saw with Targa Florio, and it's the same thing, we almost saw it at Reims. Or sorry, no, not Reims, at Le Mans. There were sections where the Div 1-2s ran a lot better, but then you get down the power straight and it's just Div 3 all the time.
Yeah, I hope nobody French is listening to us try and pronounce Reims, whatever. The last round, it's quite difficult for the English mouth. But anyway, let's move away from that. As I mentioned earlier on, Jason Whitehead, the only one to have set a Div 3 time so far. It's somewhat out of place compared to all the others. Don't really know why he was set off with all the Div 1-2s, but anyway, he did. And so that's the only thing George Angelis has got to aim for. And as things stand, he is going to overtake that car. It was only a little bit quicker in the first sector, but was a couple of seconds comfortably quicker in that second sector. So it's looking good for a best time so far in the Div 3 AM class for George Angelidis.
Yeah, and he seems solid here. I will say, looking at lap times, Mike Bell was faster in Sector 1. He put a 1:44.0 in as it goes. Mike Bell, of course, a Div 3. George Angelidis is an AM, so we'll see how that competes through. But he was 2 seconds faster in the first sector in that Shelby Daytona. We'll see if that translates to the rest of the lap here as George Angelidis is coming up the hill here. Almost done with his run. He's not quite gotten into town yet, but he's not far away here as he's going to bring it through the right-hander. And he's being nice and tidy with that Div 3. He's not doing what we saw the Div 1-2s do where they really try to slide that car around. He seems like he's really just trying to keep all 4 wheels pointing in the same direction.
It might be just a different way of doing it, to be honest. It's entirely possible that these cars can't be slid around quite so much because, as I mentioned earlier, they're a good deal heavier than the others, especially the Lotus. It's only 454 kilograms. That's insanely light, and that is 3 times lighter than the Corvette, more than 3 times lighter than the Corvette, nearly 3 times lighter than the Shelby and the Ferrari. So it's not going to be driven like that car at all. And so you're seeing that here, a much more considered drive from Angelidis, keeping it pointing in the right direction. And that is the sensible thing to do, is the overall best time is going to sail past him. He's never really believed that he was going to beat that anyway. He is, though, going to believe that he can overtake Jason Whitehead, who's currently got the best time. And then we will see Jerry Chen, who's just making his way out onto the circuit, and his time as well. That'll be an interesting one to see.
Yeah, it's going to be a close battle with Div 3 and Div 3 AMs. I do think it's going to be a very close battle for them. Closer than really I think the Div 1-2 have been, other than, you know, certain drivers like Ben Borman and Becky Ely. That gap was 0.9 of a second. There's several drivers that the gaps were just, you know, less than a second through. George Angelidis crosses with a 7:47. That is going to put him in the lead of the Div 3 AMs by a considerable margin. 9 seconds or so will put him in the lead there. But Mike Bell is purple first sector, is purple middle sector, is running up through the hairpins in the third sector, and we'll see where he can run through. He's been through hairpin 3, and he's coming up on hairpin 4 now, and we'll see where he can find that Smile Power Racing car as he gets a little bit of a wiggle. Jerry Chen will be in the bottom right of your screen. You see he's sliding just a little, not nearly as much as we saw the Div 1-2s, but more than we've seen the other Div 3 drivers.
Yeah, Mike Bell going a good deal quicker here, but he's not, let's not forget, not in the same class as Jerry Chen or George Angelidis. Yeah, the reason I was just wincing a little bit, I think Mike Bell just missed the apex slightly. Or was it Jerry Chen? One of them did. Just went a little bit wide, and generally when you do that here, it means that you're heading off not only to wide of the corner, but actually missing the apex entirely. Thankfully, that didn't happen quite on this occasion. But Mike Bell is really going to set the benchmark hit for everybody here. It's still not going to trouble the top 10, I don't think. Although George Angelidis did go 11th, I suppose he might be able to trouble the top 10, especially with that middle sector. But even so, it's a much slower machine, a much more difficult machine to get round and up this mountain.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to watch, you know, watch the Div 3 cars get up when you've watched a Lotus do it nearly a minute faster than some of these Div 3 drivers. It's very, very impressive to see how much more they have to muscle and how much more they have to go through. But they're still very, very quick here as we watch Mike Bell on the final third of his lap go through. And we've got on track right now, Nicholas Kirsten is just starting a lap. Mike Bell is near the end of a lap here. And then we also have, who is our other car that is out and about floating through? We have Jerry Chen here on the bottom right of your screen that is going through. So we'll see how things finish through. Goes through that chicane and runs well and looks fairly comfortable as we get the lap through. And where will Mike Bell end is the million-dollar question. He's going up the hill. He seems nice and tidy. The question I really have is just where is he going to be at compared to, say, some of the Div 3 AMs that have already ran?
Yeah, exactly. He'll be ahead of all the Div 3 AMs, I would argue, but whether he'll be compared to his rivals in class is going to be another issue to solve later on. Jerry Chen was a lot slower in the first sector than his main rivals in the Div 3 AM class, to the tune of 25 seconds indeed. He was slower. So, not entirely sure what he did, but he's clearly made some error, and hearing that it's not been the only one, as Mike Bell gets it slightly wrong. That's the final real braking zone of the lap. He is going to have his run up to the line slightly interrupted, although it is still a few more corners to go. There he goes through the right-hander and set the benchmark for everybody else. He will be the fastest Div 3 driver so far, and he goes up to 8th place with a 7:42.
7:42 is a very, very consistent time and very comfortable. We'll see, though, if that holds true when we get the rest of the Div 3 pros on track as it sits. Jerry Chen running through was down 26 seconds in the first sector, as you pointed out, Ewan, but he's up 1.3 in the middle sector. So his middle sector was very quick, but I think regardless of that, Jerry Chen is not going to be able to recover 26 seconds on his lap to bring his time up into a competitive stance.
No, he's not, I'm afraid. George Angelidis, as you say, is going to be beaten in these final two sectors by Jerry Chen here, but he's not going to be beaten overall, and that's going to be good news for George. As far as the championship is concerned, he needed to start making some inroads as we continue on with this championship. We're about halfway in now, and he was 22.6 points behind at the start of the day because Jerry Chen had won all but the Targa Florio race in March, at the end of March. Now that has well, a lot of time has passed since then, and so Jerry Chen needs to be pegged back by George Angelidis, and that looks like what he's done here in this session.
Yeah, and I think George will be very, very happy to see that's the situation. I do want to keep my eyes on Nicholas Kirsten here. because Nicholas Kirsten is up 4 seconds on Mike Bell through the first sector. And we have Mike Bell to join us here. He's been giving us some behind the scenes and chat here on Discord as we go. Mike, how has this race, this hill climb, this run treated you so far?
Honestly, far better than I thought it would. I mean, I had a couple of little brushes with the wall, but I mean, I made it up the hill, which is, you know, with these 64 cars, the finish of the finish line of the event is never a guarantee. You know, they do like to just reach out and bite you, so making it up to the top is an achievement. I set my fastest time that I've ever set up this climb in my actual run. Well, so I think, yeah, all in all, the run went about as well as it could have. It's going to get absolutely toasted because, I mean, like you said, Nicholas is already up on me and Brad's underway, and I think for my money they're the 2 favorites for the overall win in Div 3. But yeah, for now though, fastest time, and yeah, got to be happy with it.
I mean, hey, at least for the short term, you can say that you're the fastest Div 3 on track. So even if you do get beat for a little bit of time, you could say you're the fastest. You know, when we talked to I've already forgotten who we talked to at the very start of the session. They were fastest on track for a few moments, and you know,
Dan Scott.
Dan Scott. You know, even though he's currently sitting P20 right now, for a short time he was holding the lead. So you got to celebrate the victories while you can. Oh, and Jerry has had a big moment going into the final section of the track here.
Mr. Wheel,
and Ewan, is he done?
He must have lost a wheel. I can hear his engine revving, but he's not going anywhere. So I can only presume the engine is just powering a wheel that's not there, I'm afraid. So it's not going anywhere. And he's because it's uphill, it's even harder. Of course, it's uphill. So he's going to DNF.
Jerry Chen DNF. Wow. That's that'll be a mix-up in the Div 3 AMs, that's for sure. So George will probably be very happy with that. Nicholas Kirsten going up the hill is up 3.3 in the first, 5.5 in the middle. So we'll see where things go for that. You know, Mike, what are the big challenges with these Div 3 cars going up the hill? Now that you've done your lap, you're sitting pretty. What is the big challenge for these Div 3 cars?
Obviously, the size of the things are one. I mean, you can see, you know, if you look at JT Tammy just sitting in the pit lane, the absolute size of the Stingray compared to the, you know, skateboard that Becky's driving. You know, just the physical dimensions of getting them through, you know, the tight sections like the chicane is a challenge. Plus, add to the fact that they, you know, brakes are kind of more of a suggestion than a feature of these cars. So, you know, you've got your braking zones are so long, they're always curved, they're always, you know, narrow, and it's like one misstep, you know, like evidently what happened to Jerry, and you're toast.
What is the most difficult section of this track? Because it seems like we've lost the most people in that final little run of the track. Is it difficult because of the length? Because is it technically difficult and it's just deceptively easy looking? What is it that third sector, that very, very end of the third sector, is so difficult? And is it truly the hardest part of the track?
I don't think it's the hardest part of the track, but there's you know, a genuine psychological thing where, you know, it has a direct parallel where, you know, most road traffic accidents happen within the final 2 miles of your journey, because you're thinking, oh, there's the finish line, I'm almost there, and you almost start to think, okay, the hard part's done, and it kind of lures you in. I mean, the last section isn't really that hard, that technical compared to, you know, some of the stuff in sort of maybe the second quarter of the run, but because it's so close to the end, I think people are like, okay, I've done all the hard part, and there are a number of particularly, you know, enticing looking lampposts and tire bundles and stuff like that you can get lured into, and I think that's the true, you know, reason why people are having issues up there rather than further down the hill, is because further down the hill you're like, oh, I've still got, you know, X amount of kilometers left of this, and at the top you're like, all right, final 2k, give it the beans to the line. Oh, there's an object. Oh, John Mayer's just hit something solid.
Yeah, we're watching Bradley Sellers on the stream at the moment. Yeah, I believe we just have had. Why is old Cobra Sync showing on the racetrack? He shouldn't be there, but that's showing on my timing screen at the moment. I think that's maybe in error. But anyway, yeah, Bradley Sellers and John Mayer both out on the circuit at the moment. One final thing from you, Mike, before we let you go. Now that your part of the session is complete, of course, you're just watching. What are you expecting from the remaining 8 or so drivers who've still got left to run?
Quite a lot, to be fair. I mean, in that 8, you've got some of the best drivers of these sorts of cars in this series. Obviously, you know, Brad's on the way. Nicholas has just finished. You know, JT's still to go. Wouter's still to go. So I'm expecting my time to get absolutely roasted. But I don't see anyone beating the Lotus times. They're pretty rapid, and the Lotus is strong around this track. So I think the overall win goes to Div 1-2 today, and it's whether any of the guys left can beat Nicholas's time, which, you know, there were talk of people doing, you know, 7:21, 7:20, 7:19s in practice. So I don't think it's impossible, but it's gonna be interesting, and people are gonna have to really not hold back, which obviously increases the danger aspect.
Yeah, I think you might be right there. Mike, thanks very much for coming to have a chat with us. It's been great to watch you out on the circuit, or not the circuit, on the hill today, and chat to you afterwards as well. Thanks very much for that, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Yep, no problem. Have a nice time.
Thanks very much. Mike Bell there chatting to us at the end of his run on the mountain today. He's still second in Div 3 with Nicholas Kirsten now on top as we were having that interview. And during that interview, John Mayer has, I'm afraid, crashed in the second sector. And he is out too. So he and Jerry Chen are both going to be DNFs. In fact, half of the Div 3 Anfield are going to be DNFs. That's going to allow George Angelidis to win and make big inroads on Jerry Chen in the championship today. In the Div 3 Championship, this man is your current leader. He currently sets a 7-minute 35. That will be good enough for second for Bradley Sellers. Nicholas Kirsten started the day 13.7 points behind him. It's a race winner once so far this season at Spa. Will he be a race winner again here in Italy at the Coppa Carotti? Well, he's still got some time to wait and find that out, but he is going to be ahead of Bradley Sellers and gain some time on him. Magnus Dahlgren there, we just saw briefly, has not started his time yet, but he'll be another one trying to gain time on Sellers. Can't see JT Tami here. Oh, no, he is here. Excuse me. The only Chevrolet in the field is JT Tami, and he will be another one of those drivers trying to gain on Bradley Sellers. So it will be interesting to watch as well. Only driver out on the circuit at the moment is Ross Smith, who we've been chatting to periodically throughout the day, and I'm sure we'll get to chat to him after the race as well. He's on his run up in the S's now after the first couple of minutes or so of flowing lefts and rights. He now gets into the technical stuff. 1 minute 47.4 from him in the first part of the lap. That is a good 6 or 7 seconds off of the best first sector. As out onto the track also, or up onto the mountain, goes Magnus Dahlgren. He'll be one to watch in the Ferrari. Needs to gain some points on Sellers. We're getting towards that point of the season now, the second half of the season. We've got the Coppa d'Enna coming up next. It's a retro circuit. I think it's on the island of Sicily, actually, in Italy. Staying in Italy, certainly. Then to Goodwood for 250 kilometres. The Nürburgring for 100 minutes. Monza for an hour and a half, Bridgehampton, which I don't know at all. Then the Provence Alps hill climb. You can be sure that'll be a long and pretty mountainous climb. And hopefully not with live weather, because that'll be at the end of November. I imagine in real life that climb will be snowed over, but we won't be here in the sim. And then Paris to finish out at the start of December. So a good calendar still to come. Great to go to some of these venues you really don't see very much of anymore. This event, incidentally, hasn't been run since COVID. 2019 was the last edition, and even then it was shortened as because of fog. last time we really got a proper run and a look at the length of this was 6 years ago now. So it's been quite some time in these latter years where this event has struggled a little bit, sadly. So there we go. Meanwhile, Ross Smith making his way up the mountain, as is Magnus Dahlgren. Still waiting for the first sector time from Magnus. There he goes, 1 minute 41.0. So he is very much right up there. Dahlgren is going to be a real challenger for first here. Unfortunately, as we were expecting, Brad, Ross is not. And he won't be surprised to find that out, because he was not pleased with how he was driving in the practice.
Yeah, we talked to Ross before, and he kind of said, "Hey, I'm just, I'm running, I'm having fun. I don't expect to be the fastest, but I'm gonna, just do my best and run a consistent little race." And we can see that Shelby, especially, is just the weight's all over the place with it. It's kind of leaning forward, it's leaning back, it's kind of going side by side and backwards. But Micah Locke is here with us, and Micah, I gotta ask, how did the run feel for you, and how overall was the Alfa Romeo for you, friend?
Yeah, it was good. I don't know, it was kind of strange. Probably I think other people have felt this as well, but just kind of sitting there for a minute after you do all those practice laps, and then you just kind of almost forget some of the corners a little bit. So it was a little sketchy, made like a couple mistakes, but luckily was able to make it up. I don't have quite the skill as some of these other guys, but it was still fun.
Is it hard to get your head engaged back in the game? Especially after sitting that long, does it take a lot to sort of get your head back going, or is it one that you can pretty easily just sort of sit down and say, all right, here we go, I'm back at it?
I'm not really sure. I guess it's hard to say. I guess it's just, I don't know. It comes to you eventually. I think it gets better the longer you get in the lap. You get a little more settled in, at least for me, I guess. So, yeah, it worked out though.
Yeah, and then how have you driven the other Div 3 cars, or the other Div 2 cars, and how do they compare to the Alpha for you?
I haven't driven them in quite a while. I think since the mod first came out. I think the Porsche was pretty similar. I felt like the Lotus and Alpine, I think, are quite a bit slower, but obviously have much better handling. So it's kind of a give and take. So obviously for these, hill climbs and stuff, it's much better, but they're at a big disadvantage at Spa and a lot of the other bigger tracks. So it's kind of a give and take for them, felt like.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Micah, you are the winner of the Div 1-2 AMs by a few seconds over David Backus. So it's gotta be a good day for you. Anyone you want to thank? Anyone you want to shout out here while we've got you in the booth?
No, just you guys for putting on the broadcast. Been watching it. It's been fun. CMS Storm Gang. Everybody for showing up. It's been a fun event.
Awesome, and it's great to kind of have this hill climb set up where we can kind of talk to drivers in the middle of it while other cars are going. And Ross Smith is having big slides through the final sector and trying to get things going. Like, it's really great to kind of get your all's perspective on it as it's happening live. So thank you for being here and running. Congrats. As it stands, you are the Div 1-2 AM winner. So we'll let you go, kind of hang out and enjoy the last little bit of this session here.
Yeah, will do. Thank you, guys.
Awesome, and thank you, Micah. Take it easy.
Yep, bye.
All right, so that is Micah Locke going, okay, Magnus Dahlgren trying to conserve the momentum and slide the car around, and just kind of slides it into a guardrail. It's a very, very not the plan I would make there, Ewan, but kind of the plan he did nonetheless.
Well, I don't think it was in his plans, but it's the outcome, I'm afraid, as he's just pushing. I mean, it's the kind of thing you got to do. You got to go right out to the limit as much as you can. Sometimes you end up stepping over it. While we were talking to Micah there, we did see Ross Smith come over the line. A 7 minute 55 from him puts him currently 4th of the Div 3 drivers with still plenty to go, including Magnus Dahlgren here, who we are currently watching. He's probably got the best chance of passing Nicholas Kirsten, to be honest, with this lap time as Magnus, but we'll wait and see if he has. Is this just our camera, or has he actually stopped?
I believe he might be actually stopped there, if depending on how the camera went, because usually that camera will pan.
He's all right.
But,
he's all right.
Oh, he's good. He's going through, and he is through. And now we've got Ross Smith back post run. So Ross, I have to ask. I'm gonna ask you this question. Now you had to wait the large amount of time. It's been over an hour now and some change since, you know, the warm-up runs and the practice runs, and you've sat, you've waited, you've watched other people, and Magnus Dahlgren is just, I mean, man, that car is all over the place, that Ferrari 250. But now that you've sat a while, and then you have to jump in the car and run, what do you do to just get in the car and go?
You just do it. But yeah, that was pretty rough. I mean, it's about what I thought I would get for this one. I wasn't expecting great things because, like I said, I'm just kind of off not being on my regular stuff. But I just wanted to at least try and get it in so that way there are some points. It's not very competitive, unfortunately, but hopefully Wouter, who's been able to show some pretty good pace, he'll be able to run it up the mountain pretty quick and help out the team and see what we can do to maybe close the gap between some of those ahead of us.
Yeah, we'll see how he does when he goes out in his Shelby Daytona there. Timon Subic currently out on track. Seems fairly comfortable through. Isn't setting the timing tables alive, but is pretty competitive there with his time so far, it appears. Of course, Nicholas Kirsten in that 250, putting in a 7:23, which is a absolute stonker of a lap, I have to say. I mean, amazing to see that time come out of that 250 and from Nicholas. Ross, any sort of after your run thoughts, by the way, about, you know, how things went? Any sort of things you wish you would have done different?
I mean, I obviously wish I was back at home on the good stuff, because coming off of Tuesday's race, I could definitely tell where the car wanted to be. Like, I felt a lot stronger with it, and obviously I've been able to put in much faster times. But outside of that, you know, I think it's really great first for the series. It's a great first for the league and being able to run these cars in this type of format. So really looking forward to doing more of these.
Yeah, I think it'll be great to see more. And while we've been looking, Tom Lane, DNF, third sector, so third driver that's crashed there. Ewan, I gotta ask, is the third sector just cursed here?
I don't think it's cursed. I think it's just difficult. I mean, we can ask Ross for a bit more detail on that, but I mean, just from watching this, it does seem like the most difficult sector. It alludes to something Ross was saying earlier on when he was chatting to us before his run, is that you get into town, and we noticed this too, you get into town quite early. There's a lot of driving still to do when you actually get there, so it's you feel like you're done, and you're certainly not. It's where some of the narrowest twists and turns do come. It's not in the first sector, where actually we haven't seen anybody crash out in the first sector. I suppose it is the shortest of them, so it maybe makes sense, but it's just not quite got the big stops and the switchbacks like some of the other sections do, and certainly not the narrowness of the final sector either. But what it does mean is that we get a lot of people towards the end of the lap, and then, as you mentioned, 3 drivers not getting to the very end of it. Tom Lane adding his name to the list of Craig Pullen, who crashed very early, and Jerry Chen more recently, who have crashed in the final sector, to go along with John Mayer and Oliver Day, who both crashed in the middle sector. So that's 5 retirements out of 33-ish, 34-ish we've had today.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, you're going to have some people DNF, but I think for me personally, I would think that a DNF on a hill climb would sting a little bit more, because it is, you know, you've got to be so spot on through the lap, and you get to the very end, and that's where things go wrong. Ross, is that kind of how it feels for you? You know, if you were to DNF right at the very end, like we've seen several drivers do?
Well, it's so easy, because I mean, you think of tracks like Targa Florio, where you have a similar sort of mindset, I guess you could say, where you know that it's going to be very long and very twisting and technical, and so you just got to try and keep the car alive. There's more urgency here because you know that it's a shorter track and it's a lot easier to learn. And you're certainly seeing all of your competition. You know that those times are coming down and down and down, and so you want to try and push it as much as you can. And it's when you start getting into those margins, especially with these heavier cars. I mean, you're seeing it more with the Div 3s than you are with the 1s and 2s, because once you start sailing past a certain point in the braking zones with these, that weight is just unforgiving. You can't whoa up near enough, and so into a wall you go, into a tire stack you're gonna go. So yeah, they got to be able to make sure they're hitting all that. And Sector 3, I feel like when you're going through the first 2 sectors, it has a bit more of a flow, so you kind of get used to certain types of braking points. I mean, you've already experienced the switchbacks, so you know like where those are. And once you're kind of into that town section, it's like the kind of rhythm that you get there is way different, and you kind of have to string parts together in somewhat an awkward way. And if you miss any one part of that, it can really throw you off. And I mean, that just like it kind of goes back to what I said before. If you're off just one little bit, you can go right into some place that you can really ruin your race on.
Yeah, and that is kind of the unfortunate part about, running through the hill climbs in the twisty bits. And of course, anyone who has watched any of the WRC championship running through tiny twisty bits, and of course there's plenty of compilations on YouTube as that goes. Timon Subic is finishing up his lap now and running through. He's running fairly smooth as far as I can see, and seems fairly comfortable. He's not going to beat that 7:23 target time, but he should be in a pretty good position to beat the 7:33 time, and comes across with a 7:29, so he will be in P2 in the Div 3s there. And of course, the final man of the hour, it is main event Wouter de Bruin bringing it across the line here, running up the hill for the Rookie Monsters, and we'll see if he can beat the 7:23 in his Shelby Daytona. And as it stands, it seems like the Shelby has been a few seconds slower. JT Tammy is up on the final sector of the hill, as we have Mr. Wouter is running through in the first sector, and that, I believe, if I'm not wrong here, and somebody can double check me on this, and by somebody I mean Mr. Ewan O'Leary can double check me, I believe that is the final car that will be out on track here is Mr. De Bruin.
Yep, you would be correct. So we've, as we already know, we've already seen all of the Div 3 AM drivers, and we already know that we've got the results there, but it's still up to JT Tammy and Wouter de Bruin to decide what happens here in Div 3. And we've seen a purple sector for the first time in ages from Wouter de Bruin. A very impressive opening run here from Wouter de Bruin, and an opening sector. So look out for him towards the end. But you are right, we are getting towards the end now, sadly. But we have got some real challenges for the top spot, maybe, or definitely in this class, maybe overall entirely.
It's very, very weird to say that we've seen a purple sector after this long. I was not expecting that, but here we are, and here it goes, and we'll see what Mr. De Bruin can bring along. He put a 139.545 in the first sector in his Shelby Daytona, and it's a 139.7 that Ben Borman and the Lotus put on, and we'll see where his run goes from there as he goes into the middle sector, the middle third of the track. And we watch JT Tammy coming up the final end in that C2 Stingray is going to be running down and around, and we'll see what happens with him and where he lands as he comes up the hill further and further. The backfire from the exhaust as we go through, and now JT Tammy just needs to slide it around. And Ewan, we're almost there. It's almost been 2 hours of action, and we will see how things end here, and possibly it'll end with a new best overall.
Maybe. It would be very exciting to see. I don't think he's come through the second sector yet, De Bruin, and he hasn't indeed. So still waiting for that. JT Tammy, unfortunately, is not quite setting those kind of times. Behind Nicholas Kirsten, by the way, who's still leading in Div 3. As you can see on the left-hand side, we've got Timon Subic 6 seconds back Then Magnus Dahlgren another 4 seconds back, another 2 seconds back for Bradley Sellers. Then Mike Bell to round out the top 5. So that's what we're looking at currently, but I think Tommy can infiltrate that and maybe even have a look at the podium here, depending on how he goes through town.
He definitely could. As we watch him here come around and up the hill, we'll see where he lands things here near the end. He slides the car around, he brings it through. This is near the very, very end, and he's looking very nice and comfortable. And now it's just a hard run down through around. And how is the car handling? Well, it looks like it's right on the ragged edge here at the end of a 7-minute lap. He's 7 minutes 30 seconds, brings it across the line, 7:30.984 for JT Tammy. And now it's deep on the brakes. And now just the final driver on track as it sits is going to be Mr. Main Event Vouter here as he runs through. We'll see what he lands. He was purple first sector overall. And in the middle sector, he was down by 2 seconds. So time's bouncing around different places. We'll see where things land for him as he goes through. And he is our final driver on track.
Yeah, it's very much gone away from him, I'm afraid, as far as the overall is concerned here. He's not going to get that, I wouldn't say, but he's only 1.1 seconds behind Nicholas Kirsten at the moment. He can very much get himself into the top 2. He could maybe take the top spot right away at the very end here. This is for the Div 3 win in class, of course. Bradley Sellers already knows he's going to be losing some points to the likes of Nicholas Kirsten here today, and Magnus Dahlgren as well, who will finish 1 position ahead of him. But it's the battle for the win that's interesting here. De Bruin into the final couple of minutes of his effort.
Yeah, and as he goes through, you see he's really putting in work there in that Shelby Daytona for the Rookie Monsters team, and we'll see what he can bring around using all of the road. You can tell that Vouter's put in some practice, and we'll see how that pays off. He's really, really sending that car around, and he's a driver on a mission here. There's a mission to be found, and I believe that mission is to win here in Div 3 as we go through. We'll see what the pace looks like as he brings it across. Comes around the hill here, up, and we're nearing just the final moments. He's got about 60 seconds left on track, and we'll see if he brings it in overall.
Yeah, we certainly will. As I say, I don't think I can see him challenging Ben Burman here, but he can challenge Nicholas Kirsten, that's for sure. 1.1 seconds down on Kirsten at the end of the middle sector, because he gained 1.1 in the first and then lost 2.2. So he's 1.1 down and needs to make that up in the final sector, but he can make up more than that in this final sector. It's the most technical, it's the most difficult, you could argue, and I think it's the worst sector for this Div 3 car compared to the Div 1-2 cars. They've been losing a lot of time there, so that's what's going to take even further away and going to give Ben Burman the overall win here. But can De Bruin get the class win? Here he is in the final proper corner here, the left-hander. Now it's just a gentle rights and lefts to the end.
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be extremely close for where time lands here as he goes through. 7:15 on the clock. He's got 8 seconds to hit the line here, and as he comes across, there's the right-hander, and here we go to the line. 7:22, 7:23. He misses it. It's a 7:25.5, so Wouter De Bruin will be across the line, and he is 5th overall. Purple first sector, but in the end, he loses it to Nicholas Kirsten just on that final sector by 2 seconds.
Yeah, in the final sector, he lost another 1.2 seconds, I'm afraid. So that's the ending margin, 2.2 seconds between Nicholas Kirsten, who wins the round in Div 3, and Wouter De Bruin, who finishes in second with Timur Subic rounding out the podium. So the class winners at the end of the day, Ben Burman, who wins overall as well. Nicholas Kirsten wins in Div 3. Div 1-2 AM goes to Michael Locke. And then Div 3 AM goes to George Angelidis. Both of those two were very close, actually, but nearly half a minute off of the best time. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyable hill climb, I've got to say. Not something we've seen at all from the Virtual World Sports Car Championship historic before, but I think it'll be welcomed back, and indeed these drivers will be welcomed back to another hill climb at the end of November when we do the Provence Alps hill climb to to the penultimate round of the season. Long time to wait until then, of course, but still looking forward to that one. And as Ross said earlier on, hopefully we can look forward to some more hill climbs from CMS in the future.
Yeah, I think CMS will need to keep this in the rotation, at least one a season, if not two. Unfortunate we got to wait all the way till November, but I think it'll be well worth the wait as time goes. Final results, of course, we've went over our class winners. We've talked to many drivers throughout the day. And your final results, of course, a 718.884. Ben Borman with the win over Becky Ely by 9/10 of a second. The Lotuses P1 and P2. So that's a very strong first and second place for them. And then, of course, in third place was Reese Gardner in the Alfa Romeo with a 7:21, 2.5 seconds off of Ben Borman. And then it was a Div 3 driver, which I didn't expect the Div 3 drivers to be so fast, but they were. And it's Nicholas Kirsten in the Ferrari 250 with a 7:23, an absolutely stellar time put in from Nicholas Kirsten to be up in fourth place overall. And then, of course, Tony McCoffin, Wouter de Bruin in P6, Aliko Busink in seventh place in Div 1-2, Timon Suvic, JT Tammy, Magnus Dahlgren, Bradley Sellers. Those are all Div 3 drivers. And then Luca Tavernari is a Div 1-2, and then Dan Herlock, Mike Bell, Eduardo Benica, Scar Pope, and it takes you all the way to P17 to find one of our AM drivers of Micah Locke, the Div 1-2 AM, and then George Angelides, our Div 3 AM winner here. John Uyen, David Baca, Celadon, Jill Zalon, Ross Smith, Jason Whited, David Junt, Adam Gray, Eric Monet, Daniel Scott, Fernando Ferreira, Oliver Day, Tom Lane, Jerry Chin, John Mayer, and Craig Pullen, all of our drivers that participated today as I'm seeing them on the timing table. And if I've missed anyone, I do genuinely apologize because I am looking at the timing, and I believe if someone's left the server, it kicks them out of the timing sheet. But there's been a lot of drivers that have ran today. It's been a hill climb. It's been a unique experience, but Ewan, I will say it has been a very fun experience.
Yeah, it certainly has. It had drama at the end there as well. We didn't see anybody really challenging the overall best times for quite some time, actually, but we got Wouter de Bruin right at the end there, just about challenging. It was pretty close, but in the end he couldn't quite do it, nor his class or the overall he couldn't quite take. So maybe slight disappointment for him, but another good chapter in the story of this championship. Still plenty to go. It's a great mix, I've got to say, of circuits you'll certainly recognise, from Daytona to Sebring to Le Mans and Monza and so on, to these kind of events that you may not have heard of beforehand. The Coppa Carotti here, for example. We've got the Coppa di Enna coming up in 2 weeks' time as well. That's a circuit race, by the way, not a hill climb. It's a very old circuit on the island of Sicily, as far as I'm aware. So it's that should be good to watch as well. It's great to go to all these events that we're not used to at all as we go forward with this championship and get closer to the end. Some of those championships very, very close indeed. Looking forward to the next event coming up in a couple of weeks' time.
You and me both. I think it's going to be a very, very good one. There's a couple of different things coming up that I'm looking forward to. The 17th of August, Goodwood, I'm really looking forward to. And of course, Monza, I'm always going to be looking forward to 90 minutes at Monza because, well, Monza's a very, very good track. And when you get the historic layout of Monza, it's speed, it's action, it's fun. So I personally can't wait to see that. I'm waiting to see if we have any other drivers that would like to do final interviews here. And it doesn't appear we do. So, Ewan, we're going to call it for a day. I want to give a big shout out to Mr. Paul Glover, the man behind the cameras, who has brought all of the beautiful views to your screens of this hill climb. I want to give a big shout out to Ewan, of course, for being here with me today. A big shout out, as always, to Storm Gang Simulation, Ross, and the team that do everything they do. A big shout out to, of course, CMS Racing. And make sure that you have liked, subscribe, ring the bells wherever you're at and wherever you're watching, and make sure that you are subscribed and ready for the next one, which will be coming up very, very soon. The next one, as I have it on the charts, is going to be, I believe it will be the 10th of August and will be the Coppa di Enna. So with that being said, on behalf of Mr. Ewan O'Leary, Mr. Paul Glover, my name is Bradley Dalton. We've taken you from start to finish here today, and we'll take you start to finish on the next one. Good night.
Hello.
Oh, actually, George is here. Ignore everything I just said about wrapping this up. George Angelides is here.
Can you hear me, guys? Hello?
George, I can hear you. You're a little quiet, but I can hear you.
Okay. Yep. All right.
How was the hill climb for you, my friend?
Oh man, I cannot believe what just happened. Like I won the class, right? And it's just unreal. So I got notified by Barry, my teammate, two nights ago, that he cannot do any more the season because he got a gig with the Chicago Broadway show, so he's going to be out of the season. So between that and preparing for the race and try to find like a teammate to come in, thankfully Jason was available to come in and join. Last minute setup to give him, and then he comes in, puts it on very good time, and then ended up being a 1-2 for the team with both Jerry and John, which we were very afraid are going to be very fast. They both had DNFs, so maximum points and maximum point difference. So yeah, it's just pretty shocking, honestly, from a round that it wasn't supposed to be giving that many points because it's a single multiplier. But yeah, very happy. And then looking forward to Enna coming up.
Yeah, what's going to be your plan for the back half of the season here? Of course, that point gap is there, but seems like you may be on pace to start closing that up.
Yeah, I mean, it's all matters of how we're going to be doing in the next races, right? So if we can still make up the gap, or if I start making up the gap to Jerry, even if, not maximum points, but just beating Jerry or finishing ahead of Jerry, I think there is still chances. If one or two slip away, or if I make a mistake or a DNF, and I think it's pretty unrecoverable. But this gave a little bit of a life to the championship, so maybe keep pushing, and we see with Jason now we're going for the teams as well, so we'll see how it's gonna end up towards the end.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes through the end. George, I want to ask, what made you all decide to throw a hill climb in this year and throw this hill climb on the calendar, specifically the Coppa Carotti?
Yeah, so the hill climbs in the 60s were part of the World Sportscar Championship. So imitating that, we're doing the hill climbs. There were two hill climbs that we couldn't get the track geometry and the stuff ready, but there was one very famous that it was later into the championships. It was in the 66, I think it was part of the WSC. So, okay, a little bit anachronistic. We're using something that was not at the time, but 2 years is pretty close enough. The climb was already happening from the 50s. It was just officially sanctioned in 66. So we substituted those two with this one. And I think it was a very nice event. A lot of people enjoyed it and had fun. I hope you guys in the broadcast booth had fun with it too. And we're gonna have another one before the end of the season. So yeah, pretty excited about that now, including Targa Florio, like those kind of long courses. It's the only two that they have won. So some trend there. So I'm looking forward to another climb.
You gotta wait all the way till November, though, of course.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of a wait for you there, George, but nothing too crazy as it goes. But before we send this off, is there anyone you want to thank or anyone you want to shout out here, George?
Yeah, I want to thank Barry for being an incredible team member and all the moments that we had together as teammates. I know we got a championship last year. We're going for this year. Obviously, personal real life comes first, and I wish him the best. I know he's very excited about the music scene there, so that's very good. And then we're pairing up with Jason again, as we did in the 2024. I think that opens up another kind of chapter for us and for Scuderia Cavalli, so we will see. Thanks to Jerry and John, always there, fair competitors, pushing me to my limits and then some. And hopefully it's going to be another good second half.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good half of the season, and I'm personally looking forward to it. So we'll see how things end up, George. And congratulations on the win overall in your class, and congrats on the 1-2 for the team.
Thank you very much.
And you're welcome. All right, Ewan. Any final thoughts before we send this one off? It's like Groundhog Day, a little bit of deja vu here.
I know. I sort of did my final thoughts, but yeah. Once again, great to be here for a hill climb for the first time, and I hope to see more in the future. I know we're going to see at least one more, so that's certainly good news. And I hope people enjoyed competing in it as well. To be honest, because it is a little bit different, that's for sure. And this one indeed has been run a little bit different to what I've experienced in the past, only giving everybody one run, but that just heightened the pressure on everyone. But it was an exciting event, and yeah, hopefully we can see some more in the future. But more circuit racing to come next.
Yeah, and it'll be fun, and we'll be sure to take you through it. I won't be available for the next session, so you might get Ewan with James Parfit, and that'll be a fun one to see. But of course, on behalf of everybody here, on behalf of Storm Gang, on behalf of CMS Racing, and Mr. Paul Glover, Ewan O'Leary, and everybody here at JP Broadcasting, my name is Bradley. We've taken you start to finish. Be sure to join for the next one, where we'll take you start to finish yet again. Good night.